So we are going to resume the meeting to move to item number 5. Consider submitting a letter in support of or otherwise regarding Assembly Constitutional Amendment ACA number 5, expressing the intent of the legislature to amend the California Constitution to protect marriage equality. So the recommended action is to consider submitting a letter in support of ACA 5, and presenter is City Attorney Chris Jensen.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I just have a brief oral presentation. As you recall, on our April 4th meeting, Assemblymember Lowe presented on this proposed constitutional amendment. Just to refresh your memory, this amendment is proposed because in November 2008, California voters adopted Proposition 8, which amended the California Constitution to state that marriage is only between a man and a woman. Only marriages between a man and a woman are valid in California. That provision was invalidated by a series of court decisions that culminated in the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Obergefell v. Hodges, but it still remains in the text of the California Constitution. The Supreme Court's recent ruling in Dobbs, which overturned the court's previous rulings recognizing the right to an abortion in Roe v. Wade and Casey v. Planned Parenthood, and in particular the concurring opinion in that case by Justice Thomas, cast some doubt, or at least creates some risk, that there will be continued recognition of marriage equality rights at the federal level. The proposed ACA 5 would seek to protect marriage equality under California law and remove the discriminatory provisions of Proposition 8 from the California Constitution. If Council elects to take a position in support of ACA 5, the letter included in your agenda packet will be finalized for the mayor's signature and distributed as appropriate to our legislatures. And with that, I'm available for any questions that Council may have.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Jensen. Council questions, please. Do you have any lights? No council questions? If not, I'm going to open up to public comments. Do we have any cards?
Yes, Mayor, I have one speaker card for Community Hall and one hand raised on Zoom. Jennifer Sheeran. Welcome.
Good afternoon again. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a resident. Quite simply, I believe that love is love. I wish for everyone to have the happiness that my husband and I have enjoyed for over 30 years now, regardless of their race, creed, color, sexual orientation, or other characteristics. Part of this wish is for everyone to be able to make that lasting commitment of marriage to each other. This agenda item is especially close to my heart. Just a few days ago, my daughter was married to her wife at City Hall in San Francisco. I was incredibly pleased to witness the commitment that they made to each other as a fulfillment of the love and caring that they have for each other. I urge you today to confirm that we here in Cupertino support marriage equality and wish to protect it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have two additional speakers in Community Hall, Kathy Helgerson and Jeff Paulson. Did you not wish to speak on this item?
I wasn't sure which person. Okay, hello. All right, well, I didn't want to say anything, but I have to. Okay, the world is going crazy. If you guys would watch Fox News, you might know what's going on, and it is truthful, okay? All kinds of things are happening in our schools, sex, this, that, and whatever. And I am totally against this marriage thing between two men and two women, whatever way you want to look at it. I'm against it. That's not what I feel is right. I also feel that, now you're going to really be upset with me, but you're going to have to listen, okay? All right. We have to do something before these people are born. This is a birth defect. They could even get disability from the government, okay, because of all the hardships that these gay people have to go through, okay? I really feel that that's what's happening. We need our scientists to find out what's wrong, and I've been studying this, and I'll probably be writing some letters to some people about this, because we have to study this whole situation. because what they're doing now is changing the sex of children. And that's where I draw the line completely. They've gone overboard, and we have to fight this as a city. We can't allow this, okay? I'm a Christian, and I'm discriminated against, yes, but it's wrong what they're doing, okay? And so if you look at what's going on in all these cities with these people, they're doing all kinds of crazy things, all right? Lap dancing in kindergarten or first grade or whatever it is, you got to watch and see what's going on. If you refuse to watch Fox News, you're only going to get part of the picture. That's up to you. All right, I know that this California's Democrat, but we have Republicans here too. We do. And I remain here. This is my city. This is where I am. But we have to change. Gavin Newsom wants to run for president. Well, I'm totally against it. No way. Well, what he's done in San Francisco and LA, and you know what? I'll tell you something. Cupertino is a very safe city. Why is that? Because of you people, because of the sheriffs here. But how long is that going to last? How long? I'd like to know. You know? If this keeps up, forget it. Any place you live is going to be a disaster. You know, I'm starting to think maybe we should all carry guns. I'm serious. This is really serious stuff. So you guys better start looking into this. And I want to tell you, if they could figure out what's wrong before the child is even conceived in any way, and also before we change the sex of our children, and not even letting the parents know that they're going to do that in the schools and everything, you know, this is wrong. So please, please decide against this. But I know you won't, but I gave it a shot. Thank you.
Next we have, thank you, Kathy. Next we have Jeff Paulson.
Well, this is personal. I was one of those long-haired Jesus freaks that came to the Lord back in the 70s. And shortly thereafter, after my mom died, my dad came out as gay. And it was a kind of a shock at the time, but over the years, I grew to love my dad. We had a close relationship. And I have other friends and family whom I love dearly. I really don't care about their sexual orientation. And I will say, after decades of government experience, whether or not you love someone or don't love them, or what kind of relationship you're in, has no place in your eligibility for government work and government involvement, community involvement, housing, jobs, that kind of thing. No place. There is a place, however, for love and compassion and kindness, and that's what we need more of. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I see we have one more speaker, Louise Sadati for Community Hall. Welcome, Louise.
So I guess that everybody's going to learn a lot about me tonight. I am a retired physical therapist. I worked for 42 years in many different settings, hospitals, homes, you name it. And one of the first settings that I worked at, and I'm a 37-year-old. I've lived in Cupertino for 37 years. However, for the first, I think, 20 years of my career, I worked at UC San Francisco. And I was a research assistant, but in San Francisco Hospital at the time, it seemed like all the men, I was single at the time, that was a few decades ago, many decades ago, and it seemed like most of the men were gay. And for a single girl, they were nice and they were handsome, but they had absolutely no interest in me. However, through working with them, they were the nicest people, really good at what they did as research persons, doctors, whatever. But back in the day, San Francisco was a mecca, and sort of like in the medical field, it was a mecca for people who were gay. And anyhow, a lot of them became my friends, but no romantic interest from them. Anyway, but they had these stories of how they had been shunned by their families because of their orientation. And it was so sad. And they were disowned. So I'm just so happy that we are in a better age and time now where I can see two gay men or two gay women have their children, you know, and be a gay man and gay couple, and they'll have children, and one will call one Papa and the other one Daddy, you know? So they each had separate names, but all the love, the nurturing, and just wonderful. So my conclusion is, in this short time on earth that we have, it's love that matters, not love and hatred. So I'm sorry. I just think that it's better to be an inclusive society and not use any labels to hate or shun or exclude people, because even in the animal kingdom, 10% of the animals are gay. So it's not like they went to class and learned how to be gay, you know, so sorry. So it just, the pain that I heard, it left a memory in me. So sorry. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise. And so that is all we have for speakers in Community Hall. So I will move to Zoom. We have two hands raised from Connie Cunningham and Leanna Crabtree. Welcome, Connie.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and everyone in attendance. I'm sorry I can't be there tonight to be with you because I think this is so important, but I am in Antioch with my mom. So I am on, virtual. But I did want to express my support for a letter in support of the Assembly Constitutional Amendment number 5. I think it's absolutely critical to support marriage equality for California LGBTQ plus community for all the reasons that the former speakers said. Who we love is who we love. We should have compassion for others. We should treat other people with kindness. All those things said. So I urge you to sign this letter, and I pray that the legislation will pass and will be signed. Thank you for this time to speak.
Thank you, Connie. And our final speaker is Leanna Crabtree. Welcome, Leanna.
Good evening, council and staff. I had not planned to speak to this item. I really thought that it was, it's an important item, but I didn't consider that it would be controversial. I don't know why I didn't consider that. I'm speaking in support of the council writing a letter to support AC 5 to protect marriage for people who love each other, who want to be married to each other. I find it very concerning that people hold the idea that there's a right and a wrong way to love, and that it is incumbent on each of us to love one another and to be very open to allowing others to love who they choose to love. And there just isn't a right or a wrong way between consenting. And I thank you for considering this item. I strongly hope that you will accept it. And ideas about changing people before they're born just has no place in a kind and civil society, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanna. And Mayor, that was our final speaker.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. I will close the public comments, and I'm going to bring it back to council for deliberation, or let's make a motion in a second. And
I'll move that we authorize the mayor to dispatch a letter of support of ACA 5 to Assemblymember Lowe.
Happy to second.
all right, so moved by Councilmember Froon, second by Councilmember Chow. Any discussion, comments?
Okay, so I'm in support of us sending this letter, and I think I probably have mentioned this probably when I was campaigning, I don't know, but I do have 3 brothers who are all military veterans, and one is gay and married, and he served as a Special Forces officer under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was finally repealed. And after he left the service, he was in the military for about 26 years, he was finally married. So I am strongly in support of this. Thank you.
Councilmember Chow or Councilmember Mohan? I didn't know who's first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank Assemblymember Lowe for giving us the opportunity to offer our support by championing this particular bill. I'm honored that we get to offer that support to all of our families, especially as somebody who is in a same-sex marriage. I remember very poignantly, very strongly, how I felt after Prop 8 passed, and how I felt when Perry got rid of it. And indeed, all of the line of cases that allowed my marriage to be Perry, Windsor, Obergefell, the line of cases before it, going back all the way to the most appropriately named court case in the history of Supreme Court jurisprudence, Loving versus Virginia. I will also say I support it as somebody who is a practicing Christian and who got married in a church and whose husband serves actively on the vestry of said parish. Thank you.
Councilmember Chow, your light's still on. You want to say something?
Yeah, it's great that there are Christian churches that's inclusive and support gay couples. I think 2 adults who are committed to each other will love and cherish each other for their whole life. It's a beautiful thing that we should all support. And I'm as concerned about the transition of children surgically before they even know the impact. I am concerned about schools social transitioning children, not informing parents. That's a totally different issue from the gay marriage. I think legislatively changing this to allow marriage of any 2 individuals is the right way to go. Supreme Court is supposed to interpret law. It shouldn't be making law by interpreting meaning into different language. I hope that we continue this to make law in Congress to actually legalize gay marriage. And this California is a start, and I hope to see more of this in other states. And I understand that even beyond marriage, they are still facing a lot of trouble in adoption and actually have a complete family. And I do wish all the best for everyone who want to have a good family together for their life. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to thank all the comments of my fellow council members. I just want to say, in Cupertino, we walk the streets and we make friends because of character, because of kindness, because of integrity, and we look. Sexual orientation has no place for it. This is a great community, so I like to. We have a motion and a second. Can we?
One comment.
Oh, Vice Mayor Mohan, please.
Yeah, I too wanted to chime in and say I wholeheartedly approve. Submitting the letter in support of AC 5. I cannot imagine not doing this, and we have an opportunity to strengthen and protect marriage equality in any which way we can, and we should consider ourselves fortunate that we have this opportunity today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mohan. Let's vote by light.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. I'll be very proud to submit this letter. Now let's move to item number 6.
Mayor Wei, if I can make a suggestion.
Yes.
So given that we're right around dinner time, can I ask if you would like to switch the order a bit and maybe take the consent calendar item before we take a dinner recess and come back to item 6?
Okay, so what would be the pleasure of the council?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so since we have audience that would like us to move forward with item number 6, let's go ahead. We have a late dinner then.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good.
So we are going into item number 6. Consider the fiscal year 2023-2024 10-year budget forecast information update presentation. May I have a staff presentation, please?
Sure. So, Mayor Wei, when staff is setting up the presentation, just wanted to thank council for the opportunity to provide an early update of our budget to the council and the members of the public. As the city is facing a financial challenge going forward, we're presenting the information as they are made available to staff. And the intent of today's presentation is to give information to council so that when we're walking into the budget season in May during the study session, that council will have more information available to make sound decision. So as the team is setting up, I also wanted to kind of provide an overview of the budget process going forward. As I mentioned, this is the informational item for council to consider. No direction is seeking from the council. We'll take the any feedback from council and also members of the public back to the drawing board. The budget team and also staff has been diligently working on a proposed budget that will be released and printed out during the first week of May. By then, we will be meeting with council members individually to go over any questions that you may have on the printed budget. And then we have scheduled a study session to discuss options to get to a balanced budget on May 17th. The idea is to receive council's direction from the May 17th study session in attempt to have an adopted budget by June. The budget team will go through that process one more time during their presentation. I do want to just emphasize we're here to present the information that is available to staff at this time. There might be opportunities for you to want to ask more information, and unfortunately, we can only share what we have at the time. So without further ado, thank you, Thomas Leon, the budget manager, also Christina Alfaro, the administrative services director, for putting together this presentation, and please go for it.
Thank you, City Manager Wu. I think we just need the video team's assistance in getting our, I see it's popping up right now. Thank you so much. Good evening, Council, Honorable Mayor. I just want to go over briefly. So we're here to present the 10-year budget forecast for fiscal year 23-24, and this is an informational update. A theme that you'll hear throughout our presentation is that this is a forecast. This is our best guess based on the information we have today. More than likely, we will be wrong. There will be other things that will come into play that will cause us to make that update. However, rest assured, we will be before council for any updates that we need to make and ensuring we're sharing that not only with the council, but with the community and our employees as well. So with that, let's jump into the agenda we have before you for this evening. It is very forecast driven. We're going to go over the key forecast, the key drivers in the forecast. We're going to go over what are the assumptions that have been placed into this forecast. Then we'll go over at a high level what the forecast looks like for the general fund. We'll go over some potential budget balancing strategies and potential service level impacts as well. Jumping right into key drivers, I do just want to talk for a moment, and we already talked about this is going to be our best guess at this point, but I also want to reiterate this is something different for Cupertino to have a budget reduction. I've been here for 10 years. For the 10 years that I've been here, we haven't had to have this conversation. We thought we were as part of COVID. We made plans, and things luckily didn't turn out that way for the city, and we were able to weather that without having to make budget reductions. That said, going forward, as we bring budgets forward, they're going to look very different. They're going to be less asks, but there will be asks. We still have a city to run, a city to operate. We just need to be more prudent with our choices about what we bring forward and what council approves for recommendations that staff brings forward. With that, we want to start off and talk about the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration's audit, so the CDTFA. You will hear this acronym various times throughout the presentation. This year, we forecast a major impact to our sales tax revenue in our budget due to the CDTFA audit. And an audit for the CDTFA means that they review the proper allocation of sales tax revenue, and we will spend some time in this presentation discussing its potential impacts. And we say potential, you'll hear us say this several times in the presentation. We have not received a final determination letter. The forecast you're going to see before you this evening is staff's best guess at a worst case scenario, and that's what we'll be presenting this evening. In addition, you're going to hear about other potential drivers. So staffing, salary, and benefits is one of our biggest expenditure categories. That's really going to cover our staffing and potential labor negotiations. We also see that we budget a couple of recessions. We likely won't hit those nail right on the head on the days those are going to be in there, or the year that those will hit, but we do have those programmed in. And then some post-COVID impacts really related to the recovery of our hotel tax that's been coming in stronger than anticipated. Lastly, I also want to say sales tax is a very important part of our budget. Up until this forecast, it was our top tax producing revenue. It's still going to be likely in our top 3 tax producing revenues, and that's really due to all the businesses, both large and small, in the city, along with our residents and visitors that go to those businesses. And so this revenue source is going to continue to be an important part of sustaining this community. The graphic you have before you provides a timeline of when staff has received information from the CDTFA. We were originally made aware of the audit in December of 2021. In May of 2022, we received an additional letter updating the city on the years the audit was covering. In March 2023, CDT advised the city of their decision to reallocate revenue with dollar impacts to follow in the next 4 to 6 months. There was also several email communication back and forth as CDTFA had given us various dates when they thought they would wrap up the audit. And those aren't included here because there would be a lot, but we were in between these timeframes still communicating, trying to understand when we were going to get more information. The next slide is really meant to show a simplified version of how the sales tax process works. This is a complex process, but in a simplified form, a business collects sales tax from their customers. They then take that sales tax and they send it to, there's a report CDTFA has, they send that off to the state. The state then looks at that report and determines where to distribute the revenue. And then that's how the city receives the revenue. We do not receive much detail because of confidentiality reasons. We do know the taxpayer, the category that they're in, and the amount being allocated to the city. Next, a little bit more on the CDTFA audit. Again, this is a review of allocation of sales tax to the local jurisdiction, and due to confidentiality reasons, again, we don't have detailed reportings, but staff is estimating that there'd be a 73% reduction in ongoing sales tax. This is what we consider a worst case scenario. This is an update from the final budget this year when we provided some different numbers, and again, that's because budgets are estimates. So as we know more information, we're coming back, we're making those adjustments and reporting them out to council and to the public. The other thing is there is a potential that the city may have to pay back revenues already received, but we will not know that until we receive the final determination letter from the CDTFA. So the next slide covers county pools. The city receives sales tax revenue in 2 categories. One is the direct allocation of sales tax to the city, and the second part of it is the county pool share. So the county pool amount is calculated every quarter, and it's made up of use tax and any sales tax that cannot be easily tied to a specific jurisdiction. A use tax is primarily a tax imposed for tangible personal property that are purchased from out of state. Any revenue that meets this criteria is first applied to the county of use, and that creates the county pool. Then each agency within the county receives a proportional share based on taxes allocated to that jurisdiction against all other jurisdictions in the county. An example is listed here as the 3rd bullet. If a city generated 8% of the county's total taxable sales, it would then receive 8% of the county pool. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Budget Manager Leung to take you through details of the forecast.
Good evening. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you with an update on our financial forecast, particularly with respect to the recent CDTFA review of our sales tax allocations. It's important to note that this forecast is not set in stone, but rather it is a planning tool that helps us anticipate the long-term effects of budget decisions. We constantly update the forecast as new information is known or as assumptions change. With that said, let's dive into the assumptions that inform our forecast. Fortunately, our fiscal structure is strong, with facility debt expected to be paid off by fiscal year 2029-2030, which will reduce expenditures by $2.7 million when paid off. In addition, the city has proactively funded pension and retiree health costs using Section 115 trusts. As the OPEB trust is fully funded, retiree health, also known as other post-employment benefits, or OPEB, expenses will be funded by the trust. As a result, the city will not need to allocate additional funds from the general fund to maintain these benefits. It's also important to note that the forecast does not include any development projects that have not been approved and permitted. And lastly, the forecasts assume a recession every 4 years for all revenues. This assumption is based on historical business cycles, which typically last between 4 to 5 years on average. Although the timing of recessions is uncertain, these assumptions allow the city to forecast revenues conservatively. Based on the city's prior experience with recessions, revenues are projected to remain flat during these periods. Given the substantial uncertainty inherent in forecasting, we aim to be conservative in our revenue projections. In addition, the forecast assumes that the sheriff's contract, which is the city's largest ongoing contract, grows at the current rate of CPI plus 2%. The contract expires in fiscal year 2023-24, so the contract may potentially increase as part of negotiations. The forecast assumes no cost of living adjustments or COLAs, excluding payroll growth forecasted by CalPERS, as the city is currently in the process of labor negotiations with bargaining groups. And finally, the forecast assumes no payback of already received sales tax revenue. Now I'll discuss the revenue assumptions. I'll focus on sales tax, property tax, and transient occupancy tax, also known as hotel tax, as they have the most uncertainty. Sales tax is projected to increase by 1.6% annually on average. The city uses conservative assumptions for growth due to the concentration risk of the city's sales tax revenues. Property tax is projected to increase moderately with an average annual growth rate of 3.1%. The forecast does not assume any new development projects impacting our property tax revenues. Transient occupancy tax, which is levied on short-term stays, experienced a sharp decline in fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022 due to pandemic-related restrictions on travel. However, with the resumption of business travel in the past year, the tax has been showing signs of recovery. In fiscal year 2023-24, transient occupancy tax is projected to reach $7.5 million and then increase moderately afterwards. Now I'll move on to the expenditure assumptions. These assumptions are standard escalators that have been used in previous years. In a few slides, we will go over the deep cuts to materials, contract services, special projects, contingencies, and transfers that are proposed for the upcoming fiscal year. Materials are projected to increase by the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. Contract services are also projected to increase by CPI annually, except for the law enforcement contract, which increases by CPI plus 2% per the terms of the current contract with the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office. Special projects, which are one-time operational projects, were cut to $500,000, which will impact the ability to fund future work program and other one-time items. Contingencies will also cut in half, from 2.5% of materials and contracts to 1.25%. And transfers out were also reduced. Now I'll go through the forecasts. As Director Alfaro mentioned earlier, the CDTFA is currently reviewing the sales tax allocations of a taxpayer. In light of this, our sales tax revenue projections are based on a worst-case scenario estimated by city staff based on information from the taxpayer. It's important to emphasize that these projections are estimates based on the information we have today. They are merely a snapshot in time, and we will update the forecast as the situation evolves. The actual impact of the CDTFA's review won't be known until they make an official determination with respect to the tax allocations. However, we are providing this information at this time to assist City Council, staff, and residents in the preparation of the fiscal year 23-24 budget. While we acknowledge that there is still a great deal of uncertainty regarding the outcome of the ongoing CDTFA review, we believe that it's crucial to keep our City Council, our residents, and staff informed and up to date on the situation. By providing regular updates based on the information available, we hope to provide our stakeholders with a clearer understanding of the potential impact on the city and the measures we are taking to address the situation. Although we recognize that there are many unknowns at this time, we remain committed to being transparent and sharing information as it becomes available. Thank you for your ongoing support as we work to ensure that the city continues to provide high-quality services to our community. As you can see on this slide, we're projecting a significant decrease in sales tax revenue, with a projected approximately $30 million or 73% reduction. This decrease brings our total general fund revenue down to $80 million, which is approximately $30 million or 28% lower than our original forecast. I understand that this news is concerning, and I want to assure you that our city staff has been working hard to develop a plan to address this challenge. Departments have been working to review their expenditures, positions, and contracts to identify opportunities for reductions. Our plan includes several strategies to mitigate the impact, such as reducing full-time staffing by 20% over the next 10 years through the elimination of vacant positions, as well as cutting back on various expenditure categories. In the upcoming fiscal year, we plan to reduce materials by 40%, contracts by 20%, except for the law enforcement contract, transfers out to other funds by 34%, special projects by 77%, and contingencies by 50%. We recognize that we anticipate a deficit in fiscal year 2023-24. However, we plan to use our large unassigned fund balance to address that shortfall. It's important to note that we're taking a proactive approach to this challenge and are committed to ensuring the city's financial stability. This slide illustrates the significant challenge we face with the projected reduction in sales tax revenue, creating a structural deficit. A structural deficit is a situation where ongoing expenditures exceed ongoing revenues, resulting in a long-term imbalance that cannot be resolved through temporary measures only. However, despite these challenges, Cupertino's healthy reserves put us in a better position to weather these difficult times. To address the structural deficit and give the city time to develop and implement a sustainable long-term plan, we have developed a strategy that uses general fund reserves. This includes using $53 million in unassigned fund balance, $10 million in the capital projects reserve, and a portion of a Section 115 pension trust. By using these reserves, we aim to provide a soft landing and avoid more severe measures that could have a significant impact on essential services. This will give us the time we need to develop and implement a sustainable long-term plan to address the deficit, and we are committed to the city's financial stability. This slide illustrates our general fund revenues and expenditures over the next 10 years. As you can see, with expenditures above revenues, this creates a structural deficit that needs to be addressed over the next 10 years. I would now like to discuss the city's staffing levels and the steps we are taking to balance our budget. As you know, one of the most significant components of our budget is staffing. Unfortunately, we are facing a revenue shortfall that requires us to also reduce our staffing. We have developed a plan to gradually reduce our staffing through the elimination of vacant positions over the next 10 years. Vacant positions are roles that are currently unfilled due to either a resignation, a retirement, or never being filled in the first place. We anticipate reducing our staffing by 15 FTEs through vacancies in the next fiscal year. Then we expect to eliminate approximately 3 to 4 vacant positions each year until we reach a staffing level of 180 FTE, which is equivalent to the levels in 2015-16, as you can see by the red line. We understand that reducing staffing will be challenging and may lead to the elimination of some services. However, we're committed to balancing our budget responsibly while continuing to provide essential services. This gradual approach to reducing staffing will allow us to achieve our goal without causing significant disruptions to city services. We appreciate your patience and understanding as we navigate this challenging financial situation. This slide illustrates the impact on our fund balance over the next 10 years. As you can see, we've been fortunate in the past to have a comfortable budget that has allowed us to be responsive to the needs and requests of our residents. However, as you can see on this slide, the depletion of our unassigned fund balance over the next 10 years signals a need for us to be more strategic in our service delivery and to carefully consider where we can allocate resources and where we cannot. To address revenue shortfalls, we anticipate using our unassigned fund balance, using our capital projects reserve, and using part of our Section 115 pension trust. Our economic uncertainty reserve, which has a balance of $24 million, is expected to remain intact in this forecast, which will help us weather any future economic downturns, any other revenue shortfalls, or any emergencies. We also see that the capital project funds are expected to have a fund balance of $13.4 million at the end of this fiscal year. This forecast does not anticipate using funds from the capital project funds to address general fund deficits, but it also doesn't include any transfers from the general fund to the capital project funds. We recognize that a long-term lack of funding for capital projects is unsustainable, but adding funds to the capital program would exacerbate the structural deficit that we highlighted in previous slides. In addition, the CIP team will provide their recommendations on capital improvement projects as part of the proposed budget study session. Now I'll hand it over to Director Alfaro to discuss potential budget balancing strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. The following slides will go over balancing strategies that have existed in the city's budget for several years. These were last discussed, again, as I mentioned earlier, at the onset of the COVID pandemic when impacts to the city were unknown. In addition, we've added some more strategies to the ones that are in the budget book. Please note that although many strategies are included, staff is currently only recommending those discussed with you on the forecast slides. We are presenting all options to council and the public so that they can have a full menu of options that may be available for future use. Starting out with some of our existing reserves or funds, we have our 115 pension trust and our 115 OPEB or other post-employment benefits or retiree trust. As Budget Manager Leong mentioned, these are currently part of our balancing strategy. In addition, the use of the capital reserve in the general fund is also part of our balancing strategy. However, this strategy does currently leave the economic uncertainty reserve intact, and it does that because the city will still need a rainy day fund. Unexpected things will occur, and depleting this fund completely down would actually be a risk to the city. So we've left it intact, even though we're still structurally deficit as of year 10, using up the other balances, as we've mentioned. Next, we're looking at expenditure reduction strategies, and a lot of these are currently being utilized. The first is no new positions. The proposed budget will not contain a request for any new positions to be added. Vacancy control, this is being used, but in a slightly different way. As opposed to leaving positions unfilled as they become vacant, we will also be eliminating those positions. So not only leaving them vacant, but eliminating them from our books as well. The next three options would require a negotiation with our bargaining unit, but again, they're just provided here as examples of things the city could pursue. One would be asking employees to take on a portion of the employer's share of CalPERS cost. The other would be deferring or eliminating negotiated increases. And finally, the potential for furloughs. I do want to note for each of these strategies, the column to the far right does give an estimate of what these could potentially save. Lastly, we have a reduction in force, and this varies to the strategy we're currently recommending for vacant positions, in that a reduction in force would actually be layoffs. We would take a filled position, lay off that person to achieve that vacancy and eliminate that position. Continuing on to expenditure reduction strategies, I believe at least some of these on here are new and haven't been listed before. The first two listed there are currently we're using these as part of our strategy. We are reducing our budget and capital outlays and special projects. These are those one-time projects that Thomas mentioned earlier in the presentation. There's also a reduction in contingencies, bringing that down in half. Deferring or canceling capital projects. This could potentially be part of the strategy. This is something, as Thomas mentioned, our capital improvement plan team will be presenting as part of the proposed budget. Council could also consider a reduction of community funding and historical society funding. Again, that wouldn't come to council until we got to the proposed budget, or the reduction of festival fee waivers, again, that could be discussed as part of the proposed budget. Before I jump into revenue generation strategies, I do want to point out that when it comes to budgeting, if you're able to reduce an expense, that's a sure thing. You know that expense is off your books. When it comes to revenue generating strategies, there's a little give and take. If we're raising prices on things, it may mean that folks may not want to, come to our event or to our class here in the city if they can find a cheaper option. But with that in mind, the city is in the midst of a fee study. And we'd be looking at trying to come back with full cost recovery and potential increased fees for the city. So that's something that's currently in place that we just kicked off. The other really is the sale of city-owned properties or assets. Now, this would provide one-time revenue. And as we've mentioned several times, we do have a structural deficit. This will help, but it will not fix the problem long-term. And again, these are just options for council's consideration. And the second one is not currently on the strategy we're proposing for the upcoming fiscal year. Additional revenue generation strategies include potential increases to taxes. Now, the earliest these could be put on the ballot is 2024. And then if they pass, the revenue related to these would lag receipt by the city by about 6 months to a year. In addition, this is currently reviewing revenue tax measures is a council work program item, and staff is currently working on bringing these options to council within the next 4 to 6 months. Finally, we're going to be going into potential service impacts and next steps. And I just want to reiterate, we understand that there is concern about this presentation having no service level impacts. And we assure you that staff is diligently working to identify the reductions along with the service level impacts. However, the earliest those will be available is part of the fiscal year 24 proposed budget, and those would be presented for City Council consideration as part of the May 17th proposed budget study session. But we did want to provide some examples of what Council might expect when that budget is printed and when we come and make the presentation. It could be things that look like fewer festivals and events, fewer innovation and technology initiatives, the potential to have a decrease to our pavement condition index, and potentially reduce maintenance for facilities and grounds in the city. For next steps, again, we've probably mentioned this dates quite a few times, but we anticipate the proposed budget to be printed the first week in May, with a proposed budget study session to follow about a couple weeks after on May 17th, and looking to try to adopt the budget in June of 2023. Before I conclude the presentation, I want to reiterate that this evening for council's consideration is to accept the presentation. Actual decisions on the budget will be made as part of both the proposed and final budget hearings. And we thank you, and we look forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director Alfaro. And Council, if I could just make a few more wrap-up comments. I just want to make sure that I want to thank the budget team for reinforcing this solid foundation that we've had set in the past to set us on a healthier path to the challenge ahead. This will be a big challenge that the city hasn't yet to face in the past. It will be a collaborative effort engaging council, staff, as well as the members of the public. I think we have figured out a solution potentially for year one. However, this is going to be a 10-year plan. We will be actively engaging the stakeholders in areas that we could bring the city budget into less of a structural deficit. So this is only the beginning, and I look forward to the process to engage with the members of the public on this challenge and to come out and look for the silver lining of this problem ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the staff presentation. I'm going to bring it back to council for question. So council have 5 minutes for questioning, then we can go to public comments. Any council members wants to light up the light? And I don't see any lights. The lights to talk. There we go. Vice Mayor Mohan, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wei. Thank you, staff. I wanted to point out that this is just a 10-year budget forecast. It's a planning document. It's not the budget. So I looked at all the slides that you presented now and in our packets. The expenditure reduction strategies, the revenue enhancing strategies, these are not actual plans in terms of taking care of the budget for the next fiscal year or for the years beyond that. So I just want to make it clear that we are not today going to be deciding whether this stays or that goes, or am I right in assuming that?
Through the mayor, that's absolutely correct, and Vice Mayor Mohan. So this is the information that we have available to present to council. As Director Alfaro mentioned, that we'll have the proposed budget printed first week of May, and then come back to council on May 17th as a study session to further explore. Then council will have a chance to adopt the final budget in June.
Right. So it's pretty brave of you to even do a 10-year budget forecast, because things change so rapidly from year to year. So I don't think last year we predicted that we would have the problems that we have today. So I just want to caution everyone that this is not the budget. This is just a sort of look into finances for the next fiscal year and the years beyond. The years beyond have to be taken with a grain of salt, because we don't really know what's going to happen. But it's still a good thing to look at. And some of the things it points out is, we've always been reliant on sales tax, for example. And this shows that we need to have a multi-pronged effort to increase revenues. Sales tax is a huge component of our revenues, but we also have some other sources of revenues, property tax and the transient occupancy tax and so on. And so overall, when the city does the right things, not just increase retail so that sales tax grows, but all the various things, the housing, the development, all these generate revenues, maybe not as much as sales tax did, but there is revenue, but there are revenues coming in when we do some of these things that move the city forward. And I wanted everyone to sort of keep that in mind. It's not just about retail, or it's not just about sales, but about this all these other sources of revenue that we can and should tap into for the future. I'll stop for now, and then and just sort of make a point that it's only on May 1st when the proposed budget comes to us that we can get to look at the details. Correct?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mohan.
Thank you.
Do we have another light coming up? Any other council members wants to chime in? Council Member Chow's light is up.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation and very rough strategy. And I think Cupertino has been lucky that we did not have to cut any thing into 2020. I remember in 2020, the year, Palo Alto had to cut their budget by 20%, and Campbell that year also had to cut a lot. Many other cities had to do reduction in 2008. Cupertino has been blessed. But I think we really need to compare. I really like the chart that we have you showed the staffing level. I asked for the 10-year expenditure and the revenue chart. I'm told it's on the city OpenGov site, but I couldn't figure out how to get it. So next time I hope the presentation include a 10-year backwards so we know from the history, because I believe our revenue is a lot more than before. I remember in 2014 the revenue was like $75 million, and then it became $120 million. So we are now really down a lot compared with what we had just a few years ago. So it's good to put things in perspective. And I want to, so how much are we have to reduce this year? Is 27% you mentioned?
We're estimating a 28% reduction in sales tax this year.
You said 73%
Sorry,
reduction
73
in sales tax.
And 28% overall in revenue.
28% overall revenue. So do we expect for a balanced budget, we should reduce the expenditure by 28% this year?
So the current strategy is not
that
to
the
reduce
plan?
it all the way down, but to tap into the fund balance that we've built out over the years to really provide the city a soft landing. We think that now is an appropriate time for council to consider the use of those funds as we really try to figure out what the future looks like, what our new vision of our city looks like with this reduced revenue.
So what's the number you have in mind of maybe like 10% this year, another 10% next
Maybe
year?
Thomas,
is there?
If you can bring up maybe that slide, and then Thomas can walk you through it.
And while Thomas brings this up, I just want to, through the mayor, just to remind that this is our best estimate at the time, given the information that we have available. So hopefully then that point came across.
Thank you.
So this slide shows we'll be reducing our expenditures by about 17%. So that's going to result in a $6.1 million deficit that we will be recommending is funded by unassigned fund balance.
Oh, so we'll reduce by 17%, but the additional 11% will be funded by unassigned balance. Okay.
Correct.
And then I'm expecting, I've watched Palo Alto when they did it. They started in February, have a list of menu options for each option, the dollar amount for each reduction. And then the council actually went through that exercise multiple times, including multiple public hearing before a final decision was made. So I wonder what kind of process we envision.
We would envision all of those potential service, the reductions in expenditures and any service level reduction impacts to be included in the proposed budget document, likely as part of the budget message and in each of the department write-ups to give a clear indication of what's being reduced in each budget unit, and then presenting those to the city council on the 17th. And then we'll have an additional budget meeting. So we'll take feedback from that proposed budget, come back to try to put together the final adopted budget. We're also in the process of trying to put together a community survey. The budget team is also looking for various opportunities where we can meet the public in person and have conversations with them in order to try to bring council back at least some data point on where how the community feels about some of these strategies. But again, all of that will happen as part of the proposed budget.
So I'm curious, between May 17th and the adoption in June, would we have one additional meeting or maybe have community meeting to have a presentation so the community will know, because a lot of services will be cut, so people need to know why and how.
Yeah, I'll defer to the city manager on any additional meetings, but as part of our public outreach, we'd start as soon as the budget is adopted. We'll also be at Earth Day. We'll have a booth there as well.
Please consider potential head tax and real estate transaction tax, which I think San Jose has just adopted, and maybe reach out to Apple for another grant. Thank you.
Do we have another council member? Okay, put up the light. Thank you, Council Member Foon. Go ahead.
Sure, so I'll just start off with a few questions. You had a slide labeled historical and forecasted staffing. Does that slide reference not just actual filled headcount, but also vacant positions?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, all right. Do we know how many vacancies there are at present?
Approximately 30 vacant positions.
Okay.
Some of those are in the process of recruitment.
Okay. My second is just to reaffirm a statement that I thought I heard, and I just wanted to make sure it was clear. This is your worst case scenario forecast, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, all right. So as a matter of prudence, we're looking at what we might have to do based upon what we're thinking might be the ultimate financial impact, but we don't know what that is yet.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And once we receive a final determination from the CDTFA, we'll provide updates.
Okay, and the window for that was somewhere in the next 4 to 6 months? Okay.
Yes.
There was also a reference to the exclusion of new development projects from the forecast, and then I think it was subsequently couched in terms of whether that project was approved or not. So I'll ask the elephant about the elephant in the room. Is Valco included in that forecast?
No, it is not.
Okay, all right, that's really good to know. Is there a reason, or maybe I should ask the question differently, is there a way for you to model future development in the city, especially given that we're going through the housing element process and we are supposed to be facilitating new housing development in the city, to be able to see what new revenue might look like?
Through the mayor, I'll take that question. So that's a great suggestion. So I think going forward in the proposed budget, when we come back for study session, we can definitely provide modeling of the potential entitled development, and also we'll be reaching out to developers to see if there's any engaged enthusiasm in pursuing the development in the next several years. So we can definitely build that into the model.
Great, wonderful. Thank you. I think that's all of my questions. I'll save my time for other comments.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Froon. Councilmember Moore?
All right, thank you for the presentation. So with regards to the reduction that the forecast has included, is that just the 73% for this coming year, fiscal year 23-24, or did it anticipate any, for lack of a better word, any clawback by CDTFA of past revenue we've received?
So the 73% is expected for fiscal year 23-24. That's approximately a $30 million reduction, and that is expected to be in fiscal year 23-24 as well as ongoing. No clawback is included in our forecast currently.
Okay. And do you have any indication of whether or not that will happen? Have you looked at other cities and seen if CDTFA was looking back?
We don't currently have that information.
Okay. Okay, so if we are going to be looking at real estate development, I think that that's important for our revenue strategies to get a really clear picture on whether or not you're adding retail or transient occupancy tax places, if you're adding hotels or the residential, because most of what I've seen is showing that retail is a net positive for the city revenue, whereas the residential is not bringing in revenue for the city. And I think most people can follow along with that. And then also, if you could simply be able to show for the public how to make a calculation with regards to an increased assessed value. We saw it with the Apple project earlier. So you have the increase in the assessed value, and I believe it's you take the new value times 1%, and then times 0.07, and that's what the city would get back. That's okay. So it's not 0.011 or anything like that. Just take the new assessed value. 0.01 goes to the county, 7% back to the city of Cupertino. Okay, and I think that's important, especially when people look at large projects like Apple. So the headquarters I'm referring to. So the portion which is goes to Cupertino was last assessed around $680 million. Take that value times 0.01, then take that times 0.07, that's what we get back here. And then that could also be done for public storage and other projects. So I think that would be very beneficial, because I think sometimes people look at that total value of a project, and especially in terms of the Apple headquarters, and go, wow, that's in the billions of dollars, but what do you get in property tax? Also, if we could have it, just another reminder, I know you've given us the pie charts before, so that we can see that $42 million that you're looking at versus what the property tax is, and so that people know what it's some tough news, but so people know what the before and after is that we're looking at, and what that impact is. I think that would be helpful. I'd sent in a number of things just so that we can all kind of get a lay of the land, while you're looking for things to cut. And that was, we had just looked at new work program items, so some of those maybe we want to reconsider. And I wanted to understand what the work program items which are still underway, and what the cost is to get those completed, or do we want to reconsider some of those. And then again, the same kind of process with the CIP items, those that are underway, if they are past the design phase and they're ready to go into construction, or if they're not, and again, evaluate for what we want to do. And I believe Public Works and Susan Michael, they'd be great on that. I saw that you had special projects mentioned. I'm not quite sure what that suggestion actually is. And so that, for me, it's been kind of an ongoing question for, to me, ideally, they would have ended at the end of the fiscal year, and each department would have said, we really want this one. So we didn't have time, so we want to bring it forward. But it feels right now like we've collected them all, and we have some status, but there may be a number of older projects which could be eliminated, and then overall my preference would be that the special projects move into, if they're more maintenance, that they go into the maintenance budget portion and they don't hang out as special projects, because it's an accounting issue. And I had a number of waivers, facility fee waivers, facility use waivers. So there's a lot of facilities that are being used, and we have lease agreements for them, a number of different organizations. So it's in the email. I'm out of time, but I think there's a lot of places that, like I said, if we get the lay of the land and we're all on the same page, and I think you've got a May 1st deadline to get this budget out, got a lot of work ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. So I'll ask, I have a couple questions. So to follow up with Councilmember Furman's question, that I know the rice is not in the estimate. How about Westport, the Beta Brothers, Canyon Crossing, Marina Food, the one Apple we just approved? Are they in the estimate or not at all?
So some of those are, some of those are not, but we'll provide updates as part of the proposed budget study session.
Which ones are? The Westport maybe, or?
Yes, we'll provide updates though as part of the
okay.
budget.
So because it looks pretty, I didn't know which ones are included and which ones are not. The second one is the 10-year forecast looks pretty flat, because it is just what we know right now. So is the purpose is for us to, I appreciate all the information, the possible revenue, increase measures and the possible reductions, but the ultimate actually target is for us to work on our 24-25 budget, right?
23-24.
23-24.
Through the mayor, I'll take that question.
I'm going ahead.
Right. So I think, as Vice Mayor Mohan alluded to earlier, this is a forecast.
Right.
This is a 10-year forecast. And my advice from the budget team is normally the city does a 5-year forecast. So we've gone above and beyond to provide a 10-year forecast, knowing this is a challenge that the city has yet to face in the past. Okay. So we're concentrating and focusing and prioritizing our effort on getting through the fiscal year 23 to 24. However, also deeply committed to explore strategies to carry us back to out of the structural deficit for our budget. And that's why we proposed a 10-year forecast.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question is, when you are estimating the 10-year forecast, I think there are some other areas, money that's being spent that we can maybe look at it. For example, what I can think of is our weed abatement program. We're paying for the owners who passed it, but we're paying for the county. That's quite a bit of money too. I don't know, 20,000. So are there other budgeting that we're paying right now that you haven't looked at that we could revisit it?
So I think there may be what we were trying to do to close such a huge deficit is we're trying to take big bites out of the apple. So we're probably a bad sense of words, but a big bite out of the deficit, right? So that those other items, now that we've taken the big pieces out, right? We get the staffing, the contracts, the materials, that now to balance that other piece, we're still running at about a $6 million deficit as we're going to continue to look at other strategies. We'll continue to update the strategies. I think this is a good opportunity to thank the community. I know there's been a lot of other recommendations. Hey, have you looked at this? Have you tried to do that? And we are really taking a look at those and trying to understand. But from a budgeting perspective, even with a $6 million deficit, we're going to really pursue the ones that get us there faster. As much as we can, kind of with the least resistance available, because our goal really is to get us back, as the city manager just said, we want to be back in a balanced position.
So what I'm asking is, for example, you put a historic society in it, that's a $20,000 budget. So just go check into a little bit more detail what else that we're spending that could be put on the table. I'm not saying that we're going to do it, but give us more options. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of things that council members are probably don't remember or don't know, but as a finance team, I'm pretty sure you know where the money goes. So maybe bring us a little bit more options so we could have more put our thinking hat on it.
And I do want to point out, we have tasked the departments with doing that. We've asked them to look at a 40% reduction in materials, 20%. So that's part of the departments really digging in and giving us, here's what we think we can cut, here's what we think we can manage. And again, those will be brought back for council's consideration as part of the proposed budget.
Okay, thank you. No more questions from the council. I'd like to bring it to public comment. I think your time actually is off. Can you wait until the next 5 minutes? Okay, so I'm going to open up to public comment.
Yes, Mayor, I have 6 speaker cards for in Community Hall, starting with Jeff Paulson, followed by Jennifer Griffin, followed by Kathy Helgerson. Welcome, Jeff. And I see 2 speakers on Zoom.
Hello, this is a more formal presentation. I'm Jeff Paulson, Cupertino resident. I'm speaking as an individual with no professional association with this issue at all. I'm here to oppose the revenue generation strategy of selling the Blackberry Farm golf course. And here's why. I have a lot of experience in government with parks and recreation, open space planning, and we have a real gem here in the Blackberry Farm, McClellan Ranch open space along Stevens Creek. It is very, very rare to have this kind of asset in the middle of a city. Only city I can think of that has it in California of a mid-sized city is Chico. The other thing is, once open space is sold, it is extremely difficult to retrieve. It usually is only purchased from ranchers and farmers who are in danger of urban sprawl. So once it's gone, unlike a program or staffing that can be resurrected. So that being said, I don't like to just be against things. So here's what I am for. I had a long Zoom meeting yesterday with a very bright local Stanford grad who has a lot of ideas about the golf course, ideas that even I wouldn't even thought of. And what they include are things that I would name each of you individually as an asset, but I'll just say some of the things that I think we could look at in the future. They're too numerous to list here. I want to keep this short, but we could create a golf course area that would be inclusive of more people. We would get an A+ grade for recreation. I think could be recognized even nationally. We could help our budget long term. We could also improve pollinators and species diversity. And also we could create a place that would be more celebratory of our vibrant community and more inclusive, and would really be a feather in our cap for decades to come. Now, I'm not opposed to leasing the property or renting it. That's something that Stanford does, and they get their money and their land back eventually. But please, let's take this off the table permanently tonight, because it will do long-term irreparable damage to the city if we don't do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Next, we have Jennifer Griffin, followed by Kathy Helgerson, followed by Peggy Griffin. Okay, I do not see Jennifer Griffin any longer, so we'll move on to Kathy Helgerson, followed by Peggy Griffin, followed by Louise Sadati. Welcome, Kathy.
Okay, I sent out a letter to you guys so you know what this is all about that I'm going to say. This budget forecast is an outrage and should not be approved. From the beginning of the deal between Apple Computer and the city of Cupertino, which authorized a percentage of sales tax revenue each year allocated back to Apple Computer. Other cities that are also involved with sending half or more of the local sales tax back to the companies in the name of economic development is wrong. Sales taxes should only go to and should have gone to the City Cupertino, in this case, State of California and Santa Clara County. If Apple and other corporations want to contribute money to the city or Cupertino, they should do it separately and voluntarily. I would like to suggest a solution to the problem. It seems that other cities feel it's unfair that the city of Cupertino is receiving way too much money from their agreement with Apple Computer. So why not, in all fairness, pool the money, the revenue together in one collective tax fund and divide it up evenly with the cities, the state of California, and Santa Clara County? Apple Computer and other companies that also have agreed like this would not participate in any way with sales tax money revenue. This would eliminate the issue stated in complaints of the haves and have-nots. Having a finance company hired to divide the monies instead of expensive lawyers would save a great deal of money. Companies such as Apple Computer, eBay, Home Depot, Best Buy, Nike, Inc., Williams-Sonoma, Inc., Walmart Corporation, and more companies with agreements requiring portions of tax funds directed to them have benefited greatly in the past. This may have not been legally correct. Someone should check on that one. I do not propose that these companies should be required to pay back the funds they acquired in the past, but going forward, they should not be allowed to continue their agreements between the parties. The taking of this tax revenue from cities, Santa Clara County, and the state who need this money is wrong. The hardship on each city in the Silicon Valley is causing a great deal of pain and suffering, and the public needs to be aware of what is taking place. Now, asking the city of Cupertino or any other city to compensate the lack of revenue by selling off their assets, cutting back on employee salaries, laying people off from their jobs with all these layoffs that are all over the place, and not filling open positions once people leave will harm and hurt the cities. Many city projects will be cut in order to fill the revenue the city has lost. I'm very much against these possibilities, and ask the City Council of Cupertino to take the lead in stopping what is taking place. Please review my comments and take them to heart and provide them to the city's staff members. You got to work harder, honey. You really do. Okay, all you guys, work harder. File a lawsuit. This tax revenue people, whoever they are, this should have been caught who knows when. It should never have been happening. Why should we suffer for this? Get a lawyer. Here he is over here. Get this lawyer over here. File a lawsuit against them. Okay, this is what you have to do. If you don't,
next we have Peggy Griffin, followed by Louise Sadati, followed by Jennifer Sheeran. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening again. Now? Good evening, Mayor Way, Vice Mayor Mohan, City Council members, and staff. As you know, I like to live within my means, and I'm asking you guys to live within your means. Don't sell assets. It doesn't solve the problem. Reduce spending. Some ideas. I want to thank Rhoda Fry. A lot of these are her ideas, and I feel the same way. Review and reprioritize all the CIP and work plan items. I would think you'd do that before you do the budget. Review contracts to see which ones can be paused or removed. Lower spending thresholds before requiring council approval. Force more of them to come to council. It might lengthen the meetings. Create enterprise funds to track revenue expenditures at city facilities such as senior center. I've been looking at the accounts payables, and there are thousands of dollars for trips. That's okay, but let's see the ins and outs to see if they are paid for. Blackberry Farm Pool and Picnic, the same thing. McClellan Ranch and Orchard, those are kind of three different parts. Make sure expenditures are assigned to the proper budget items. I've asked 3 times why a $126,000 check to the city of Sunnyvale was labeled under general fund rather than transportation, and nobody will answer. It's a budget question. Eliminate fee waivers. Reduce mailings of park and rec catalogs in the Cupertino. Allow us to opt in for mailings or opt out. Send postcards with the link. Stop replacing vehicles so frequently. I like the idea of not paving the streets as frequently too, although I love them. Next steps. This is the part that really I'm concerned about. The proposed budget comes out May 1st with a lot of work from all the departments, and I appreciate that. Proposed budget study session May 17th. I know it allows people time to look at this huge, massive document. But between that, May 17th and June, you need a couple more meetings. You need to be able to provide the study session input, then modify it and see what you've got, and allow council to comment on it, and also the public. We don't want to be able to comment on the final adopted budget. It's done. No opportunity. Previous priorities were based on false assumptions that the funds were available. They need to be looked at again with a different eye. Work smarter. Other cities can do it, so can we. You guys are smart. Let's do it.
Thank you, Peggy. Next we have Louise Sadati, followed by Jennifer Sharon, followed by Jean Bedord. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you. So tonight we were given a worst case scenario in sales revenue drop. Hopefully, as further details come out, the decrease won't be as much as the worst case scenario that the city staff rightfully presented to help us prepare for a worst case scenario. We're in this together as a city, whereas whether it's staff or residents, we're in this together, okay? Let's stay calm. We have some of the best minds here in Silicon Valley and Cupertino. Let's take the next month to think creatively with overarching problem-solving win-win focus, okay? Let's work out feasible collaborative solutions with, as was mentioned earlier, multi-pronged revenue increasing strategy. Collaborative solutions with multi-pronged revenue increasing strategies to increase revenues and reduce spendings. I heard a few great suggestions already tonight from council and staff, like for instance, property tax to Apple, okay? But I would like, however, for us to all get all the details of the decrease in revenue versus revenue increasing strategies before we cut CIP projects and the work plan that we have spent a long time preparing for and presenting and campaigning to the city council and staff. There's been years and years of work done to bring up the work plan and the CIP. So before we just cavalierly start chopping things off from programs that have been taken years and a lot of input and process from people, let's take a month to just think clearly for a win-win positive solution before we take a burn and slash strategy. Please take a month to be creative, positive, and work collaboratively. Get all the details first before you burn and slash. I'd like you to, like I said, work out feasible collaborative solutions with multi-pronged revenue increasing strategies to increase revenues and reduce spending. And of course, we will ultimately help keep public safety. And and in this worst case scenario, revenue that could be coming from Valco and Westport and all sorts of different things, they didn't have a chance to input that yet. So further details to follow, a month. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Next we have Jennifer Sharon, followed by Jean Bedord, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi again, everybody. I'm speaking today again on behalf of myself as a resident. I've reviewed all the material that was in the written communication that was provided by the staff and everything like that. And there's one question that I keep asking myself, and that is, why was this not put on the council agenda for a meeting last year? After numerous notifications over a year that this audit was going on. The previous council had the ability to put this on the agenda to talk about it and kind of get like what we're getting right now. I count May 22nd, May 2022, June 2022, November 2022, and December 2022. Thank you, Rhoda Fry, by the way, for that information. Somehow the kind words of Jim Throop in June are being considered as everything was fine then, which I think it was just an exit, him being nice. So I've heard an awful lot over the last couple months about how detailed the monthly audit reports and how the audit committee and this and that, but it didn't catch any of this last year, or at least was not talked about. And then I see in a lot of these meetings where we're talking endlessly, hours over the smallest sums of money when we have this huge thing going on. So I'm kind of baffled sometimes about process and why we're doing all that. So I want to echo a couple things that Louise just said, which is being strategic is going to be really important going forward on this. I'm kind of sad that the council has to deal with this huge budget crisis and the whole housing element, which just feels like it was just kind of dumped on them within a couple months of them taking office. So whatever we do, I ask you to look at things strategically. Don't worry about the $1,000 here, the $200 there, but spend your time looking holistically at the whole picture. And I think then we'll be able to work together to come out on the other side of this, whatever ends up being, because again, we kind of don't know exactly what it's going to be. So thank you for considering my comments. Good night.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next we have Jean Bedord, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Jean.
Well, I think I can actually say good evening, Mayor Way and council members. I want to echo a lot of what Jennifer was talking about. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for this budget report, which did help clarify the rumors surrounding the CDTFA audit. The sales tax collection process is indeed a nightmare, with all of the changes in online buying and the different interpretations by state tax authorities. It's good to know at last the ballpark estimates of the revenue lost to our city, though there's still a lot of uncertainty and murkiness. Though I appreciated the identifications of options for dealing with this revenue shortfall, I was disappointed in the actual budget balancing strategies, particularly the lack of emphasis on increasing property tax revenue. The forecast assumptions state no additional development projects are included, but that's not realistic, given that the council has just approved a new Apple building and the 88 townhomes on the Westport site are well under construction. No mention of this impact was made in the budget balancing strategies. My overall reaction to the conclusions is that this is a bean counter document, which needs a strategic focus. The expenditure reduction and revenue generation strategies, while useful, are limited. What does it take for the city to attract new revenue-generating entities to our city? There's no input from our economic development manager. Why have council members turned down grants from the state? A year ago, they turned down $400,000 that would have gone into the general fund to offset some of these changes. Earlier councils rejected $121 million in community benefits. Again, we need to focus on being smarter about getting outside monies. I urge the council and staff to have a study session to focus on strategic direction for the city and then deal with the nuts and bolts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And our final speaker in Community Hall will be Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Hi. If you want to know what this is about, Google Bloomberg, Cupertino, Apple, tax. Question, City Council. What are you doing to retain Cupertino as the point of sale for Apple's online transactions in California? Question for staff. What is the furthest back the city TFA might go? Can you please show the worst case scenario showing payback? Also, if Cupertino has to pay back the Apple sales tax money to the state, will Apple reimburse the city its 35% share? Thank you. Thank you for anticipating the city clerk, Kirsten. So this is a slide showing the historical per capita tax. Oh no, it went away. There it is. Okay. Income as compared with our neighbors. And I have to wonder, where'd the money go? If you're wondering where Cupertino is, it's the top line. The other cities are San Jose, Los Altos, Mountain View, Saratoga, Sunnyvale, our neighbors. They're doing, let's be smart, accountability, transparency, frequency of monitoring, and please don't sell our assets. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit of a long story here. So we've been getting mixed messages from staff, and I also want to echo Jennifer's concern. Why wasn't this brought forward more frequently by staff? I would say by staff, not by council. So city staff first learned about this in December 2021. We didn't learn about it until May of 2022. We were given three scenarios. Those are where they labeled May, and I'm going to call them the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then in June, which is the lower blue chart, we have, it looks like things are going to be okay. Then in August, there was a potential salary impact mentioned. In October, our City Hall subcommittee with Kitty Moore and John Willey was concerned about the potential short and long-term funding impacts due to the audit. And again, in November, there was a recommendation from city staff to not do transfers to reserves. So then here we are in April 2023, and the slide, the prediction looks extremely different. It's on the lower right than any of the other ones. Nothing's going negative. And I got to wonder how that happened. Next slide, please. And I also, the next slide will show you how in June of last year, we were looking at a minor impact. A little hard to read the lines, but the blue line, the good line, was on top, and now the blue line, the good line, is on the bottom. So that's bad. We're going in the negative. Next slide, please. So first thing, don't sell our stuff. Water, we own it. And if San Jose wants to buy, maybe our lease is not enough. Open space, we voted for UUT. We own Blackberry Farm. That's why we got UUT. City Hall Annex, keep it. Next one, which I talked about earlier. Revenue side, consider a large company headcount tax. Other communities are doing it. We looked at it in 2018. Don't change UUT, parcel taxes. Let's be smart.
Thank you, Rhoda.
Thank
That
you.
is your time. And we will move to Zoom. We have 3 hands raised from Govind Tadakari, San R, and Lisa Warren. Welcome, Govind.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to split it into a typical financial kind of picture. One side we can look at the income and expenses. The other side we can look at assets and liabilities. First of all, absolutely in terms of assets, we should not be selling any city asset. I think that's a wrong idea. Okay. In terms of the ability to manage what is going on, I think one of the best things in terms of strategy is to consider, just like we have been dumped with about $30 million loss, is there a way that we can say that we did not know about this and we couldn't anticipate this? So because of that, it needs to be spread. The payback has to be spread over, say, a 5 million, 5 year or 8 year or 10 year range. Please negotiate that. The second thing I would like to send is, in terms of spend management, there are a lot of places where spend management can be better. We can make sure that many other projects, many other things are accounted very well in terms of making sure that we know the amount of money coming in, going out, and that's a detail which somebody else referred to as enterprise funds. We need to get into that kind of mode. The third is cash and fund flow management. I think cash flow and fund flow management, we need to make sure that all the revenues that we need to realize need to be actually, we need to speed that up so that it's possible for us to have a healthy fund and cash flow. In terms of income, I would definitely support a staggered or what I would say even larger business headcount tax. That I think does make sense because we are losing sales tax revenue, but that is something we can negotiate with Apple. In terms of if any development fees are involved, I would just say that development fees should be specifically targeting multifamily homes and commercial property, and not ADUs and single family homes, because that will make things worse for us. And I think in terms of remittance from the county, we should try to realize it as fast as possible so that we can do a better cash flow management. I believe that all the waivers that we are giving, we should try to look at them with a microscope and try to reduce waivers when possible. Then I think, we need to look at all the information strategically. And please don't sell Blackberry Farm. I completely agree with Jeff Paulson's this thing. You cannot get that kind of property at all. So I would just go with that. And these are the main points I would like to write to the council about other details. And I appreciate the opportunity today. I thank Mayor Wee and the council members for this particular session, and thank you for considering the options that are in front of you. Bye.
Thank you, Govind. Next we have San R, followed by Lisa Warren. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Wee and City Council. I want to express my disappointment that the attachments provided today for this agenda item were grossly insufficient. A single presentation for a topic of this magnitude is not sufficient information for either the City Council or the resident. This agenda item should have included attachments that show a breakdown of staffing by department, by job function, by job title. I would have liked to see staffing historically broken out by those categories by year so that we had a sense of how the department grew, how the city staff grew over the years, and what it looked like 10 years ago when we were at more comparable revenue levels. I would have liked to see a list of study projects that are in progress and the amounts that have been allocated and are currently available for clawback if needed. I would have liked to see a list of capital projects that are in progress as well as have been funded so that we can have a more meaningful discussion of where these cuts can occur. Putting a list of assets to be sold on that list completely violates the trust of residents. City staff and the city manager lose the trust of residents by putting items such as Blackberry Farm Golf Course, which is a crown jewel of the city of Cupertino, as well as other properties and our water supply on the list of assets to be sold. We do not have the ability to raise taxes on residents. In case you have not noticed, we have had over 168,000 layoffs in just this year alone. And most of those have been tech layoffs, and most of those have been in Silicon Valley. Cupertino largely consists of tech professionals that are struggling and reeling from mass tech layoffs, from hyperinflation, and from ongoing challenges that the city poses in terms of quality of life. This is not the time to talk about raising taxes. This is the time to live within our means. I look at the capital improvement projects that we have and the projects that we have funded, as well as the projects that we've requested. We have projects that are continually bike and ped projects for bike lanes that are multi-million-dollar projects. And we simply do not have the ability to afford these projects. Furthermore, we have an inequity in the community representation when these projects are considered. We have a bike and ped commission. We have no commission to represent the needs of the remaining parts of the constituents of the city, which are people that actually use the roads for day-to-day transportation. The inconveniences of these bike lanes, coupled with the abysmally low usage of these bike lanes, simply do not warrant any more funding for additional lanes, and we need to claw back the funding that has been designed for extensions on Stevens Creek, as well as extensions on Dianza and McClellan. The Bollinger Road Improvement Project needs to be canceled now, not a single penny.
Thank you, San. That is your time. Next, we have our final speaker is Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa. You'll need to unmute, Lisa.
Sorry, I had to stop another meeting for a minute. This is a huge deal. This is a huge task for everyone involved, including residents, and I hope no one forgets that. I would not want to be in the shoes of many of you that are there tonight. I also don't want to be in the shoes I'm in as a resident. And I wholeheartedly believe, and think most residents would, that selling asset is a huge mistake. Huge, especially in this area. So please avoid that at all costs, pardon that expression. And then Jeff Paulson brought up, I was able to listen to part of this. I think he was speaking about a group that might come in and maybe save the day on the golf course. I caution that very much. I'm aware of the group that people in the city have been speaking to about this, including staff and probably some council members, not sure, and apparently some residents. This is not a tried and true company. If you try to look them up, there's very little information. It's basically, from what I can understand, a startup that doesn't have the model, that, or I suspect doesn't have a model that will satisfy what the city really wants. And I don't want anybody being a jackrabbit and jumping into something just because they're going to think that nothing else can be done. We've spent money on study. We're down to two options. I don't know why that has not continued. We should be at a point where council is hearing this again and a decision is made, habitat or golf course, and moving forward. We don't even have that. I also do not want to be in any way, shape, or form held hostage by developers if people are willing to run to them asking for help and a bailout to get something that we don't really need if we live within our means. That would be a horrible situation. Cupertino has taken care of itself. It needs to continue to figure out how to take care of itself without outside interests taking over, as they often do so many places. I contend that that is not a good plan. I'm not saying it's been said, but I know it's in some brains and it may get there. And in a month's time, when we have to know this, there's not enough time to think about this clear.
Thank you, Lisa. That is your time. Mayor, that was our last speaker.
Thank you very much. I am going to close the public comments session, and thanks for all the public comments. I just have one question for City Attorney Jensen. Is it possible to answer the questions of why we're not screaming and yelling in 2021?
Yeah, I can say that both council and the public have been consistently been provided with as much information as we possibly could, given our confidentiality obligations and the fact that taxpayer information is confidential. And I can say that we have been aggressively pushing to make sure that we can disclose this information to the public, and it was important to do it as part of this budget process as we go in for this next fiscal year. I would also say, at any given time last year, I mean, whatever the level of uncertainties are now, they were substantially higher, and so it's just a materially different situation than it was last year.
Thank you for City Attorney Jensen's explanation. I just want the public to be assured that staff and the council are working really hard, and there are sometimes our hands are bind that we sometimes information is flowing in the direction that needed to be. Thank you. So now I want to bring it back to the council for comment, and Councilmember Froon and Councilmember Moore. Who has the lights on first? I didn't notice.
I'll defer to Councilmember Moore.
Okay, Councilmember Moore.
First.
I just had a quick question from before, which was, do you anticipate receiving basically a bill? And then if you receive this, are they going to give you some leeway in how you pay this money back, or is that how does this progress?
So this is a decision that can be appealed. We won't necessarily have to pay anything till the end of that appeal process. That said, it's prudent to set the money aside while that process is playing out, and so that's why the assumptions that you see are baked into the analysis that Administrative Services has provided.
Okay, so we're looking at the 73% reduction for 23-24, but all of this audit has apparently been going back to 2021. So my concern is with regards to any potential clawback, and that concern is because we're sitting in the middle of this fiscal year, and while we're doing the sales tax has decreased from last year. Do you have any sense for how far back they're going to look? And I think it's a pretty valid concern that we're sitting in the middle of this fiscal year right now when this news is coming out, because that makes me think, well, maybe that their timer is starting sometime around now, and that it might actually be more than the 73%, meaning 73% looking forward, but you could also lose that same or something close to it percentage for this particular year. So that being said, are we going to look at a scenario that considers that. You know, I hear this saying worst case scenario, but it sounds like there could be another one. Is that possible?
So there is the possibility of a retroactive repayment of sales taxes that have already been received by the city. I would say that there's a great deal of uncertainty over the timing and magnitude of that payment, or whether there will be any such payment at all. But I don't think I can really get into any more details about that. At this time. I would have to defer to the budget team as to, if there were some payment, sort of how that would be funded. And again, I think there's just a lot of uncertainty about both the magnitude and the timing at this point.
Do you want to let Councilmember Fruin first? Okay, Councilmember Fruin.
So after everything that we've heard this evening, I think it's important to reinforce for everyone that we should not be panicking, especially at this stage in the proceedings. We should all be taking it extraordinarily seriously. I think everybody is, but panic is the enemy of good policy making. We have a bright and innovative community. I'm sure that working together we can figure this all out together. The cities that are around us manage to make it all work with far less reliance on a narrow set of sales tax producers. There's no reason why we can't do the same, and we can rise to that challenge. Thank you.
Councilmember Chow?
So, just to clarify, what we are seeing is not the worst case. It's because we have not received the final decision letter. So thank you for bringing this before we have that letter, but staff has communicated with CDTFA to know enough to have this projection. But final one might ask us to pay back the taxes we have received in previous years, and that's not included in this forecast, right?
I'll take that question through the mayor. That is correct. This is the best information that we have available at this time that can be disclosed to the public.
Yeah, and the city attorney said in case we need to pay back, likely we will appeal. That won't come right away. Then we will have some time to prepare for that.
So once that decision is made publicly by CDTFA, we'll update council when that information is made available.
So this is best. This is worst case with the information we have now, but it could be worse. Okay. And then I think I second that we need a detailed staffing number between departments, because some department, for example, planning, there are vacancies, but we do need to fill them. And some departments have grown over the years. Maybe they need to be reduced in numbers. Maybe people need to be moved to other department. So we need to examine. And then I think we are more top-heavy than a few years ago. So I think we need to also look at the different position levels compared with previous years. And I want to share the screen where thank you that I did find how to find the budget for numbers from past few years from the website. So here is from our website. This last year we had almost $110 million, but back in 2000, I can't see the number, but you can see that even in 2012 we had only, I think the room has a bar there, so I cannot see the number. Okay, so in 2012 we had $54 million. And then 2014, we had $83 million. And we just had a big increase during the pandemic. And then now, that bar for the current year is not the full year, so you can ignore that because that's the current year to now. So as you can see that we had a lot more sales tax in the past few years, and we are just going back to maybe normal. So we shouldn't panic. However, we have been living, when we get more money, we have been spending more, and we should be cutting back. And that's just responsible to do. Therefore, we should examine what current projects we have, what current contract we have, and see if any of them can be cut back, because we signed all of them when we think that we will continue to get this very high income. So this is all on the city website. I find out you can click on revenue, click on the annual actuals, and then go click on this bar chart, and then you can get this number. And then the deep blue, darker blue is the sales tax, and light blue is the property tax. Sales tax has increased a lot, and it's just reduced to normal. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Chow. Councilmember Mohan, please. Vice Mayor Mohan.
Thank you, Mayor Way. In spite of all the information we've received about the 73% ongoing reduction and so on, we need to remember that we are still operating under a whole set of unknowns. We still don't have exact numbers, and hopefully we'll have something more concrete in the May 1st proposed budget that staff will produce. But I also wanted to commend the city and staff and previous councils on establishing a strong financial footing over previous years. We've been very lucky in that we've been a relatively wealthy city, and most cities of this size encountering a decline in revenues of this magnitude would have major operational problems. There would even be probably mass layoffs and bankruptcy and so on. And we haven't had those in the past. We certainly will not have it in the next year. So I think the focus, at least for me, I think the prudent thing to do is to focus on the next year, make sure that we have a balanced budget, which we will, with as little impact as possible. And then during the next year, make sure we sort of plan for the next year and the next year, given that as the months go by, we will get more and more information. So, talking about, we've had many comments about the Blackberry Farms golf course and other assets, but these, I'm assuming these is just a list of options that staff threw out, not for next year, but over this 10-year period, assuming that things stay as bad as they are now over a span of 10 years. So that's maybe, this is something we would have to consider in year 8 or year 9. But I'm assuming that because of the healthy state of our reserves, this is not something we would be seriously considering in the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mohan. Councilmember Moore, you have about 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering if we could pull up the forecast expenditure assumptions chart once more, and I might want to take some time offline to have some explanation on this one as well. So I'm looking at, we've got materials, contracts, special projects, contingencies here. So let's see, the not the expenditure reduction strategies, but this one will work. We can look at that. So when I'm looking at materials, is that a strategy to reduce the materials across the board? So when I'm looking at the budget for every single department, would that be the proposed reduction?
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. So all departments have been tasked with, trying to reduce the materials by 40%, but it won't be a uniform 40% across every department. It'll depend on, each department's specific situation.
Okay, so you're looking at overall for, compress the entire budget onto one page and then
Yes.
40% there.
Every
Okay,
department is trying to make reductions, but it won't be the same reduction for each one.
Got it. Okay. So there's a forecast expenditure assumptions page, which is like 2 slides back. Okay. So under there's special projects at a 0.5 million base plus CPI annually. Is this referring to the special projects that I was mentioning, and what exactly do you mean by this?
Special projects are one-time operational projects, so not CIP projects. But it also includes one-time operational projects as well as potential work program projects.
Okay, so the expenditure assumption then is the $500,000 plus the CPI annually moving forward. So that will be a reduction. Okay, and I'll take the rest of my questions offline so I can, if that's all right, and we'll pull the chart apart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Chow, you have more comments?
Hi. So I want to put into public records of the email that Councilmember Moore and I sent to the city to request revisiting the work program, and then there is a detailed list of information that requested that we would like to get so that we have more information. And I think our priorities would be very different now. And I also would like to request consider maybe a different fee structure for the Cupertino Via. I love that program. It's something we have to do, and it's great we got the state grant. But maybe we could charge a longer trip to Sunnyvale a larger fee so that we don't subsidize so much per trip. Or it could be that the peak hours we could charge more because we already have the occupancy we need for that hour. So that could be considered. So please, then that way, this one is heavily subsidized. Please consider that, and also the other information we get. And then I would sincerely request one additional public hearing before May 17th for the public to review the budget and then can ask questions that's in addition to the May 17th council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chow. So I'm going to use my 5 minutes to say a few high-level things. I understand the staff is giving us, recommendations, suggestions, and I particularly appreciate sometimes the staff think outside of the box, and I would like to encourage staff to come with your innovative ideas. But I do want to say a few things about the comments from the public. The civil grand jury especially says that the council members and us, we need to work with staff. The staff have expertise, and we need their expertise to come up with recommendations. But that doesn't mean that the recommendations are going to be 100% agreeable or the best ones. But if we are using pretty accusatory tones every time they suggest something, then if I were staff, I would not suggest anything, because the less I suggest, the better I'm not being, reprimanded. So I would love the public. You guys are genius. Come up with great ideas. I heard some good ideas about this and that. Come with ideas. And you have council members and staff who dedicated to make sure Cupertino passed this challenge. For every challenge comes with opportunities. This is an opportunity for us to holistically look what Cupertino finance would look like in the next 20 years. A long time ago, already people are warning us, depending on one company, Apple, is not a good thing. It's coming out that it's coming true. But as Councilmember Froon says, let us not panic. We have great community. We have staff with expertise. You have dedicated council members. We are going to, together, we're going to pull through this. And this is a good time for us to look at all our financial status and think through what revenues can we increase? What reductions we can make? How can we make our city whole, but also move forward? So I am not scared. I think one of the speakers said she doesn't envy us. No, she should envy us. We are here together to meet a challenge, and this is what we should do. This is what we're elected to do. We are going to work with our residents. We're going to work with our staff. We are going to meet this challenge, and we are going to make Cupertino a better place. But we cannot work together if we continue to accuse each other. Your idea is bad, and no idea is a bad idea. Let's work together. Come with your ideas. Come with your suggestions. And together, we'll find solutions that are feasible, that will work for the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Cupertino has a lot of potential. I've been talking with my colleagues in Saratoga. You know, their annual budget is just a little over $20 million every year. They're not Cupertino. They're very envious of Cupertino. We still have much more than what Saratoga has. We have industry. We have future income. We have potential developments. And we have great assets. We have family entertainment. We're going to work together, but without the accusatory tones. Because if we do that, we are stigmatize everybody. We'll be afraid to come up with ideas. We'll be afraid to work together. So I'm seeking everyone, our residents, our council members, our staff, let's be innovative. Let's bring our ideas, no matter how bad it could look like for somebody else. Let's work together and pull through this. Because if we don't, Cupertino will go down, because we will just be offset each other's ideas. We would be not coming up with good solutions. Let's work on feasible, but innovative solutions. Look at Cupertino. This is a wonderful place. I know you're all here because you love Cupertino. Nobody is not going to be here if he or she does not love Cupertino. So let's put this love together and work together as a team. Do not criticize anybody's ideas. Add on it. Somebody come with an idea and say, hey, this could work, but maybe we should do this and this. This is how strategic planning comes along. This is an opportunity for Cupertino to sit down together and plan strategically for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Look forward. Do not accuse staff. Do not accuse other council members. Do not accuse other community members. We are all in this together. We can't do it without everyone's collaborative spirit, without love for our city and for each other. I am asking and seeking your support. Support your council members. Support your staff. Thank you. And this is just an information item. So do we have other council members like to put in some thoughts? Councilmember Froon, actually you have a little over 4 minutes. And Vice Mayor Mohan, you have about 2.5 minutes. Councilmember Charlie Moore, you pretty much use your time. If not, we can move to dinner.
No, I think that's about it. I did want to clarify for the purpose of the modeling of future development that we should be examining what the housing element impact would be, specifically because in the course of putting that document together, we are making a variety of statements to the state supported by evidence that those projects are likely to be built. So I feel like we ought to be including them in our future forecast.
All right. So if there are no more comments from the council, I'd like to recess for dinner and come back with item number 3.
Sure, sounds good. Would you like a half an hour recess?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so we'll come back at right around 8:20, 8:30.
Let's come back at 8:30.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, it's 8:30. We're going to resume our city council meeting. We are going to consent agenda number 3, which is consider authorizing city funding for up to $2,200 for the visit to Sister City Hsinchu, Taiwan. The recommended action is to authorize city funding for up to $2,200 for the visit to Sister City Hsinchu, Taiwan. So do we have a staff report?
Mayor Wei, we don't, but we do have two supplemental reports subsequent to Councilmember Chow's question that are part of the written communication and also desk item. So they have been published, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, so we'll open up for council questions before public comment. If there's no council questions, I would open up the public comment. Council member, anybody wants? All right, let's.
If I can ask some
Councilmember Chow.
Just to clarify, so the city manager will be leaving on Sunday, right? And then will be in Taiwan from next Monday to the following Tuesday.
That's correct.
So it's a total of 7 work days that the city manager will be in Taiwan. And you are taking 1 vacation day out of the 7 work days.
So there will be total of, so Monday is a travel day, so I arrive in Taiwan on Monday, and Tuesday through Friday have business arranged by the Sister City delegation. Monday, the following Monday, is a vacation day, and Tuesday is a travel day.
But then, I mean, doesn't matter, so work, the taxpayers will be paying 7 days, 6 days out of the 7 weekdays that the city manager will be either traveling or in Taiwan.
I guess I'm not understanding the question, so I'll be
want
working.
to clarify that, yeah.
So I'm not sure if I understand the question. So I will be traveling on the Monday and then the following Tuesday to come back. Not only I will be assisting Mayor Wei during the delegation business, I will also be checking my emails, working on the city operation while I'm in, just as if I'm in City Hall.
And then do we know which cities you are visiting and on what date?
I believe that there is a draft itinerary that has been shared with me by the Sister City delegation, which is also part of the response. I don't remember the exact logistics arrangement, but I think that's still being finalized. We'll be visiting Taipei, New Taipei, Hsinchu, and then also the high schools.
So I actually just got an updated itinerary. So Tuesday and Wednesday is Taipei and New Taipei City. Thursday and Friday is Hsinchu, and then actually City Manager Pamela doesn't know that we just added a Saturday. At National Chengda University's industry group wants you and me to be there. They just set up an office in Los Angeles, and they're very interested in meeting you and me to exceed potential economic development in Cupertino. So sorry, you're going to work on Saturday too.
Not a problem.
The point of order that the clock doesn't seem to be up.
Right, sorry. I'm going to open up the public comment. I'm sorry. Councilmember Moore, you have questions?
Yes. With regards to the ask of this item, the $2,200, it's a little unclear because it sounds as though that there needs to be fundraising happening by the Sister City Committee. So staff is working with the Sister City Committee to determine if and how much of these expenses can be covered by the committee's fundraising efforts. Once the trip concludes, the committee board will discuss the possibility of additional reimbursements to the city at that time. So I'm curious about that, but our policy seems to state that 50% of Mayor Wei's trip is funded, that City Council will fund that. But you're providing us with a $2,200 amount, so I'm not really sure. That sounds like that possibly, what you're meaning to say is that possibly is 50% of the total trip cost just for Mayor Way. I'm not sure how this money breaks down at all. It says it in the staff report. In accordance with the Sister City policy, which is attachment A, half of all the travel expenses for Mayor Way will be covered by the city. So is that the $2,200? And then it says for staff, the policy states that travel expenses must be funded by the Sister City Committee or by the individual unless authorized by the City Council. But what we're being asked to fund, approving the request would result, staff recommends, that city authorize funding for the Sister City visit in an amount of up to $2,200 from the city manager conference and meeting account. Who is that for then? The $2,200 that's being asked?
Through the Mayor, this is my expenditure request coming to council to cover for my travel expense. As the policy mentioned that Mayor Way's expenses covered by the city up to 50%, and I am not a council member, so the policy says all other council or city staff who travel with the city for the Sister City delegation can be reimbursed or paid for either through the Sister City funding activity, which hasn't been none because we're just barely coming out of the pandemic, or funded by me, or authorized by council to use my training fund.
This is for city manager's fund. It has nothing to do with mine.
Okay, so through the mayor, we're going to be covering 50% of your trip. So does anyone have a ballpark amount of what that would be? So is $2,200 what you anticipate is just for air travel, or for the manager? Will you be staying in a hotel for the duration?
Sure. Through the mayor, I am staying with my family to alleviate additional lodging costs for the trip. It's up to $2,200, including airfare and potentially ground transportation that I don't know of. As Mayor mentioned, that the schedule is quite fluid. So $2,200 should be enough to cover for everything. However, until the trip has concluded, I would not have the exact dollar amount.
So the item is asking for up to $2,200.
Okay, just right. But for us to understand that while it says $2,200, there's the 50% of the mayor's trip, which would be another $3,500 or so. But
I don't believe the mayor's expenses needed approval by council. So the ask before council tonight is to cover for my expenditure only.
Thank you, City Manager. However, I'm trying to understand how much this trip is costing from, we just had a lengthy budget
may I answer
discussion.
May I answer Councilmember Moore's question about my expenses?
Yes,
you're
okay,
because it's not on the agenda. Okay,
yeah.
So I can tell you, I am also going to stay with my family. So my flight is about $1,600, and I don't have probably not any other expenses, but 50. Okay, so here's the email from Sister City. The land cost in Hsinchu for Cupertino city representatives, 50% of the mayor's, so they will pay 50% of the mayor's travel expenses in Hsinchu, including lodging. 100% of city managers, they will cover your Hsinchu cost, 100%. That's what Sister City has funded.
Okay, and then lastly, if I could have some explanation about how the Sister City Committee from council, these appointments that were made, how does that relate to the Sister City at all?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
So 2 of the council members each year are appointed to the Sister City Committee, but how does that relate to this Sister City Committee?
Okay, so maybe I can answer that too. Okay, so this is the email from Angela Chen. I'm going to read her email to you. This year's exchange program is a smaller group compared to prior years, as we are handling this year's exchange program as a pilot program after 3 years of global pandemic and through which we had not worked with Hsinchu government officials at all. Last year, we officially notified Hsinchu of our wish to visit, and they expressed their warm welcome, but emphasized that this program has to be flexible due to potential COVID quarantine requirements and to keep the program very small. So when I was approached to come, they did not, they said they only limit to 5 people. And actually, I was just talking to Rhoda right there. I didn't invite city managers. It's actually Hsinchu Sister City invited city managers to go. And so this is how this program is so small. There are only 5 delegates. One from Cupertino Union School District, one from Fremont Union High School District, one from Foothill De Anza Community College School District, and one from city as a city mayor, and one invited city manager to go. So it's only 5 delegations this year.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I think we might want to consider, and maybe this will have some cost savings as well, because I see that the sister cities' budget amount is $66,000. Per year in the city budget. We might want to consider abolishing the sister city appointments, because it seems as though we're somewhat irrelevant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So shall we do a public comment first?
Some question. So the staff report says that the city manager will be a part of the delegation will be supporting the mayor on official city business. And per the sister city policy, usually when there are delegations from either sister or friendship city coming to Cupertino to visit, I have received them. Usually the scope of staff support is just preparing proclamation, preparing gifts. Usually, city manager or none of the city staff even attend the meeting. Even the city manager might stop by, say hi in a couple of minutes. So I would like to know what official city business is there that the mayor will be conducting that will require city manager's presence.
This is my first time going, so I don't think I can give you specific, but when I heard Pamela is going, what I very happy is I do believe that New Taipei City or Friendship City has some intention of talking about economic development, and so is Hsinchu's sister's city's mayor. She and I exchanged some line because she was elected and I was elected at the same time. We sort of have the same name recognition, character naming at the same time. So she's very excited to meet both our city manager and me. And actually, I was just telling city manager she's going to work on Saturday because a national Chengda University, they have a sort of an economic a model of doing business and with products. They just set up their office, product office in LA, and they're very interested to meet Pamela.
This has nothing to do with Sister City.
Yes, but it's like because Sister City connected with them, so they actually invited
so
Sister
City. My understanding is delegation will be in Hsinchu maybe 1 or 2 days.
2 days. No, they're there already. They're there for 4 weeks with the students.
Delegation, yeah. I mean the student. And
but Angela Chen, a Sister City, just connect with us. I'm just trying to answer your question.
Why is there a need for the city manager to even go? The mayor can have this kind of conversation. What kind of decision you are going to direct the city manager to make on this trip that would require her attendance?
I'm not making any requests. I just
through the mayor. I believe the ask before council is to authorize my travel expenditure. My job is to support the council and also to support the mayor. I was asked to go with the Sister City delegation, and I wish I can give you a line-by-line job description of what I do every day in City Hall and not outside of City Hall. But again, my job description says I'm here to support the council and each council members, especially the mayor as well. So again, I just want to remind the council the action before you is to authorize or to deny my travel expense request.
Okay.
Shall we, if you have no question, can we open up the public
another
comment
question is the other delegation members, the school board members, I think from CUSD and Fremont Union, and Foothill De Anza, my understanding is they are all paying their own entire travel expenses, including hotel, and they are taking a vacation time from their work to go. Those who work, because they couldn't work remotely from there. So they are...
I'm sorry, I don't know the answers. You have to ask them.
Okay, so do I have any sister city representative here? So we don't have anyone who can talk about sister city, how they operate. I spoke to a teacher who has sponsored the trip, and they are very serious that their student exchange program does not take any public resource from the school district. Any of the teachers who volunteer to be chaperone for the entire trip are going on their personal vacation time, and then any of the pre or post trip meetings are all happening at night on their personal time. So that's how the student exchange program operate, to limit the amount of public resource used.
Okay, so if this is not a question, let's go to public comments. Let's open up the public comments, please.
Yes, Mayor, I have 4 speaker cards in Community Hall, and I see 2 hands raised on Zoom, starting with Peggy Griffin, followed by Kathy Helgerson, followed by Jean Bedord. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening again, Mayor Way, Vice Mayor Mohan. Sorry. Good evening, Mayor Way, Vice Mayor Mohan, council members and staff. Yeah, there you go. In the Sister City and Friendship City Policy 2018, the city will pay 50% of 1 trip per year per council member, provided the trip is in conjunction with an official delegation. All other council or city staff travel for sister city programs must, in this particular case, to be funded by Sister City Committee fundraising activities or by the individual traveling council or staff member, unless authorized in advance by the City Council. This request is the night before the trip. Money has been spent. It's an abuse of the policy. I'm asking for 100% funding, yet the mayor and council members must pay 50%. What justification is there to pay more than any other person? There has never been before the need for assistance by city staff on these trips. What makes this trip different? If it's business, they can conduct it here with the council members. Everyone on this trip does so on their own time. Teachers do it during spring break. Adults take vacation or time without pay from their jobs. Mayor Way, why should this city pay someone to take a trip like this? To me, it feels like a boondoggle. You both have family there, you're gonna stay with your family, and oh, by the way, the city's gonna pay for the trip. Optics are extremely bad, pushing everyone to follow city procedures but not following them yourself. Announcing a budget crash, then leaving town on a paid vacation. Listing possible increases in taxes, selling assets, possible layoffs, while you spend public tax dollars on a trip. Setting a precedent that policies and procedures are just words, only to apply to some people and not all. Only enforce them when it's advantageous to you. I request that you not cover this trip, but if you insist, which I figure you're going to, cover no more than 50% of the cost, because that's in line with the rest of the reimbursements. Do not pay the highest paid person in the city to go on vacation. Offer a choice of take vacation or time without pay. If needed, allow borrowing for future vacation. Your words and your actions matter. They do not jive right now. Optics matter. As leaders, what you ask others to do, you must do. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Next we have, looks like Kathy Helgerson is no longer in the room, so we have Jean Bedord, followed by Louise Sadati, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening, Mayor Way and council members. My name is Jean Bedord, and I'm a resident of Cupertino. As a member of the public, I am thoroughly annoyed with this agenda item regarding travel expenses for $2,200 for our city manager to accompany our mayor on a sister city's trip to Taiwan. The city manager's travel budget has funds available, so there's no need to allocate additional funds. This is standard for staff. They have funds to be able to do professional type activities. This is economic development. Now let's step back. The civil grand jury cited councilmanic behavior and micromanagement in their report. This item is micromanagement to the nth degree, bordering on harassment of city staff. The city is faced with a $31 million reduction in sales tax revenue. So why is this council wasting everyone's time, the public, the council, and the staff, on a mere $2,200? I consider this highly irresponsible behavior. Please approve with no further ado. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Next, we have Luis Haddadi, followed by Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Luis.
Good evening. So I think that this is terrific. That for the first time since COVID, 3 years ago with all that isolation, we actually can have a trip with communication with the sister city. And the sister city asked for a small delegation and specifically asked for our mayor and our city manager. So Hung Wei, our mayor, and Pam Wu, our city manager, were specifically asked to be included in this small delegation. I believe I heard that the sister city is paying 100% for the city manager, Pam Wu. And I think it's terrific that the mayor and the city manager are kind enough to not generate hotel bills, but will stay in their childhood bedrooms or wherever the family has room to put them. This trip will have economic development possibilities for Cupertino, and as the presentation previously, we need to have more economic development for Cupertino. As the agenda showed earlier this evening, we have bigger issues than all this kerfuffle over a really terrific opportunity. And I do believe that the school districts are different than the city council and the city manual. So I know that the school districts have had problems, and they have the right to do what they want with all that school recall and schools closing, whatever. Cupertino is different, and it's run by our city, our council, and our procedure manual. And one speaker was saying, well, this is really bad optics. However, speakers coming up and going on and on and on, trying to make this a big circus and create a optical delusional illusion that this is a huge problem when we actually have bigger issues to look at. We need to look at economic development possibilities, which I think that's part of this trip. And we need to spend our time in council looking at the big strategic picture, not nitpicking over a pittance, $2,000, spending a lot of time and having a big brouhaha, and then people saying this is bad optics when they're creating the bad optics. So, and I think it's a delusional optical projection. There you go.
Thank
So
you,
go
Louise.
go for it.
Thank you, Louise. And next, our final speaker in Community Hall is Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Hi. If the procedure manual had actually gone through as originally written, I would not be standing here speaking to you, because this is the fourth item I'm speaking upon. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak. So I'm glad that that portion of the manual did not go through, which would have kept us, the public, from speaking. And I do support Hong Wei's trip. It's a wonderful opportunity, and also having been on the school district board, I think it's great that she's going. City manager, we're going to miss you. You know, you're hearing us talk about how we don't want you to go. We don't want you to be gone for 7 days. It's a lot of time. We need you here. It's our budget, right? So, you know, and why didn't we hear about this sooner? We have procedures. We've been told that procedures are going to be really important. We got the new council. Why are we finding out so late? You already heard that from Ms. Griffin earlier. Really like to understand how the trip brings economic value, whether there could have been an opportunity to think creatively and attend via Zoom. You know, 7 days is a long time to lose your time. And then what happens when Italy comes along, Japan, China? Are they all going to want you to come there too, to work on whatever, economic development, I don't know what? And that would be not 7 days, it would be 28 days. And that would be a really long time to lose you from our city. I'd also like to know, with respect to the trip, there was something in the agenda that said that staff has gone on these trips before. I'd like to know when and who and where. And I'm certainly looking forward to seeing your report when you return. And I also wanted to speak to the optics issue. You know, yeah, staff is, we're looking at cutbacks and, you know, what are the opportunities to attend via Zoom and things of that nature. So we don't want you to go. We miss you. We're going to miss you. We need you here. I know you're leaving, and I guess you'll be in touch, and our day-to-day will be in the capable hands of Mr. Morley, who we adore. So, but you know, you gotta get this stuff earlier on the agenda, so we don't get surprised. So I'd appreciate if you could do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda. And that concludes our speakers in Community Hall. So we will move to Zoom. We have 3 hands raised: San R, Liana Crabtree, and Lisa Warren. And actually, Tessa Parrish had lowered her hand, but she raised it back again. So we'll start with San. Welcome, San.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Wei and City Council. I want to express my support for the Sister City Commission trip by Mayor Wei. I think this is a wonderful organization. It is a unique part of Cupertino's efforts towards our teen and youth students. I've had the opportunity to observe at close quarters the work that the Sister City Commission does. I think they do a fantastic job, and they're extremely passionate towards the cause in creating lifetime memories for our students in the district that get a chance to travel. I'm fully supportive of Mayor Wei's travel. I believe that she would serve as an inspirational role model in the time spent on the trip with the teens that are traveling. And at the same time, I would like to bring up not the cost aspect for the city manager, but the optics. The city manager is the executive leader of our city staff. Our city staff has just been told there could be budget cuts coming that are going to impact the city and therefore impact the staff. And as their leader, it is important to send the right optical message. It is important to lead from the front, to be here while the budget is being worked through, and to be accessible to the public at this time. So I would request you to continue to support the program, continue to champion and sponsor it, continue to send our council members who are inspiring role models and elected representatives and are the rightful people to be the representatives of the city of Cupertino on this trip, not appointed officials. And while the sister city may ask for whoever they ask for, it is our prerogative on who we send. And so I would hope that you will do the right thing. Leadership is about doing the right thing when no one is looking. Unfortunately, here everyone's looking. And I would emphasize it is not about the cost. I don't believe we should be talking about $2,200. I just believe it is about doing the right thing and setting the right priorities. This is a time when leadership is needed up front and center on the topic of the budget, not as much on the topic of sister cities for our city manager. I hope you have a safe trip, and I look forward to hearing great things about your accomplishments there from the students and plenty of photographs with the students. And thank you for your support and sponsorship for the program. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Next we have Leanna Crabtree, followed by Tessa Parrish. Leanna Crabtree, followed by Lisa Warren, followed by Tessa Parrish. Welcome, Leanna.
Good evening, council and staff. Thank you for the informative discussion from the dais, the questions from council members, and the responses from Mayor Wei and from City Manager Wu. I was actually very, very helpful. I did read the Sister City policy, and I did read the staff report, but I came away with a lot of the same questions that the council members have asked. My takeaway at this point, at hearing the responses and hearing other people's comment, is it seems that there's a couple of things. One is there seems to be a disconnect in what this trip is. I fully respect and actually am very happy that the city is engaged in a sister city program, a very robust sister city program that's coming back following a pandemic, and that program is really about cultural exchange and making lifetime memories, particularly for our young people. And I understand the need to have adult chaperones, role models in the community to serve in that role. I understand the role to be chaperone, though, and in this context, chaperone being a volunteer position, in the context of a sister city relationship that is about cultural exchange, I don't understand that the role of city manager is imperative. So, in other words, a city manager certainly attend, and that would be wonderful as a community leader, but not in the capacity of a city manager. But then, in the course of the discussion from the dais, it comes out that there's actually economic development discussions happening, which doesn't seem to be part of what was presented in this agenda item. But this agenda item is about a sister city relationship, not about an economic development relationship. So I'm trying to understand, in what capacity does the city manager attend? And if a chaperone, then a volunteer and on personal time off and paying their own way, right? If it is a business trip or that business, I do hope that we'll get a full report about who was discussed. I hope that, any agreements that are made are certainly going to be cleared through council before, promises are kept, or it's just a little bit disconcerting. Is this cultural exchange or is this economic development? Also, the staff report, it's really not clear. I appreciate Councilmember Moore identifying what are the actual costs to the city for this trip. There's the cost apparently of the city manager's salary for 6 days. There's the cost of the city manager's travel. There's some cost for, it sounds like Mayor Wei's travel, but the only number that's mentioned is $2,200. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration of this item.
Thank you, Leanna. Next we have Lisa Warren, followed by Tessa Parrish. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I actually wasn't sure how I was going to put into words what I was thinking. But Leanna Crabtree did just that. My understanding also is sister city travel, all those exchanges, either us going there or them coming here, is for cultural exchange and social connection and sharing. This kick in of economic development opportunity is alarming to me because I don't believe that's what this program is for. And I don't feel comfortable with, I'm really, like I said, I'm struggling with how to say this without sounding like a complete negative Nelly. It's just really awkward and odd and I dare say inappropriate to be changing the mission of the sister city engagement with each other. And there certainly should be no promises made and no promises kept on anything, including, if not primarily, economic development, without anyone but two people knowing about it. And this, because this was awkwardly done and not been done before, and I might remind everyone the reason this meeting is tonight instead of next Tuesday is because back in March, it was stated that the mayor and the city manager were going on this trip. However, it took till tonight to have that discussed, as policy says it needs to be approved for the cost. So I don't understand. There's so many questions about this, and it may seem small to some people, but it's really something going in the wrong direction, in my opinion, and obviously in many other people's opinion. And I don't want to be someone that's thought of as overreacting. It's just, and I don't want anyone to take anything personally because it's not personal, it's title, mayor, city manager. I don't care if it's Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. It's just, it's not appropriate. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. And our final speaker is Tessa Parrish. Welcome, Tessa.
Hi there, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. My concern about this item is a little different, and everyone, Liana covered one of my concerns quite well, so I want to second what she said. My concern is more of, it's very easy to be in a meeting if it's an economic proposal or possible idea, even just an idea. A nod in the head could easily be construed as an agreement to work towards it. It would be, I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the risk involved in just even hearing the city manager is a city staff member, where mayor is a mayor, and it's known that she requires council's approval and all that. It just seems a little risky. And so my concern and request, because I'm thinking it'll most likely get passed just because of the majority council in seat today, as of today, and is how, please consider strategies and policies to prevent anything that might be construed as an approval, like I said, a nod in the head or I'll look into it or whatever. Just be really careful, because you are representing the city, and if you're going on city's time on the weekend and as paid as a staff member, your communication carries a lot of weight. And so that's my concern more than anything. Yeah, everything else everybody else said in terms of payment and all that. But all that aside, that's a bigger concern for me. The economic, what it could be for relations, and with that set a precedent to other countries of how to do business with Cupertino type of thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tessa. Mayor, that concludes the speakers.
Thank you very much. And I would like to bring this back, close the public comment, bring this back to council. I know Council Member Chow has his lights up, but I would like to speak a little bit to this item first. Okay, so I want to say a little bit about being a city manager. She is or he is our staff, but a part of the city manager's greater job is to connect with the community. To be on this trip, why I did not invite City Manager Wu, but when I heard she's going, I am more than thrilled, because the trip with Sister City, we are not actually going with the Sister City. We are going to celebrate the students in the last 2 days, but the first few days, we are going to meet the mayors, the vice mayors, and their staff. And in Taiwan, and a lot of they are very serious about it. We are going to meet 4 or 5 staff, not just the mayor. And their economic development, their vice mayor are going to be there. What they want to talk to the delegation is not just about not just about student exchange. They want to talk about education exchange. They want to talk about economic development. They want to talk a lot of things. So when I heard Pamela was invited, I was very excited. And where I came from, Taiwan, they're really excited too. I know the mayor of Hsinchu is very excited because both of us grew up in Taiwan, and this is the connection is just right there. So I am very excited because I think our city manager in this trip will make connections not just with our friendship city and sister city and Hsinchu sister city, but with board members with CUSD, with Fremont Union High School District, with Foothill de Anza. This is what our city manager needs to do, not just stay in the city and doing our own things, but also get out in the community, be part of the community, make connections so that our city can collaborate, can really make progress and work together. That's why I'm very excited about this. Okay, I understand this is the first time a city, I don't know, actually. This is my first time on a sister city trip, okay. But when we talk about sister city trip, I am not a chaperone. City manager is not a chaperone. All the adult delegates that going with this trip from CUSD, Fremont Union High School District, and Foothill de Anza, we're not chaperones. We are there to meet mayors, to meet vice mayors, to meet cities, to really talk with city officials in Taiwan. Our last part in Hsinchu is to celebrate the students in their farewell party, but this is part of it. It's really a trip to make connections with city governments, and also economic development is part of the talk. Education exchange is part of the talk. Enhancing Mandarin learning in the U.S. is a part of the talk. So I want to clarify that we are not chaperones. So this is really not a trip to chaperone the kids. And what I also want to say is, I understand everybody's very supportive of me going, but I am very supportive of city manager who's going, because not many city managers grew up in Taiwan. So I know both New Taipei City and Hsinchu City's mayor's office are very excited to receive both of us. And our sister city's representative Angela Chen just made connections with National Chengda University of their economic, they have a science team that they're very excited to meet us, and that will be on the Saturday. So our itinerary continue to improve, to make. I just want to say I'm very excited that Pamela is going. So that would be my comment. Thank you. Councilmember Chow, I think you're next, and then followed by Councilmember Moore.
Definitely, I fully support all the Sister and Friendship City programs, which is meant to encourage community volunteers, to support them to communicate with and support our community organizations to do culture and other exchange with their counterparts in another country. And that the city manager can communicate with our community leaders right here in Cupertino. And these volunteers can go, and council members can go to another country. So it seems right now the purpose is economic development. But this item has never been on the council agenda. And in each work program item, usually we would attach staff hours for that item. If this were a work program item, I would estimate the cost for a city manager 1 day is about $1,500, including salary and benefits. And 6 work days, that's $9,000 total. Setting that aside, even if the purpose is economic development, when did we have any discussion about which cities or countries the city should be forming this relationship with before it's determined? It seems single-handedly that we will do that in Taiwan. What if next time Japan invites city manager, she will then go spend another week there with our taxpayer dollars? We hired the city manager to run Cupertino City in Cupertino. Any economical development opportunities should rely on experts who are in economic development, in exchanging with other countries. City manager, that's expertise is to run the city government. And we need the manager to be right here, especially she's still new and we are doing a very important budget. So I would like to still ask, what official city business is there in Taiwan? It seems today, last minute, there is this one visit that can count as economic development that would justify the whole trip. This should have been discussed a year ago, 3 months ago, and the council should have a discussion about how we want to spend the city manager time in economic development, if any.
Councilmember Moore, I think, followed by, sorry, I didn't see the lights, whether Vice Mayor Mohan first or Councilmember from Vice Mayor Mohan then. Okay, from the left. Councilmember Moore, you first.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Chow, for mentioning economic development, because we did have an economic development committee codified last year. We interviewed everyone for that, and then this council abolished it. So I'm a little concerned that what I'm hearing is that that this is a chaperone trip, chaperoned by other individuals, and that the last 2 days of the trip will be spent with the actual delegation. So I'm not sure how many days this trip is. Councilmember Chow, do you happen to have that number off the top of your head?
We are arriving Monday, and then it's Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and now we're adding Saturday. Tuesday through Friday is the official visits. I want to make one thing clear. The adult delegation that goes with the Sister City Exchange is never part of the Sister City Chaperone. Sister City Chaperone is separate. They're all there already. All the chaperones, all the Sister City people are there already.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Wei. So you're spending only 2 days with the student delegation, but the staff report, so you would be with them for their farewell party. And the staff report is indicating that you're actually leading the delegation, but that's not really true if you're only going to be with them for their farewell at the end. And so what it tends to look like is that you'll be spending a number of days just on your own. A little bit of concern with regards to the cultural exchange when you're visiting your home cities. And I thought of this in terms of myself, and if I were to be going back to my home state, and were that had a sister city there, would I feel comfortable sitting here asking for this city to pay for me to go back to my own home state? And I would feel pretty uncomfortable about that. And then I wouldn't feel as though I was really doing the notion of exchange justice. So I'd have some problems with making that ask myself. Okay.
I just want to make it clear that we're not on our own. We have a full itinerary on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and it's to visit the Friendship City, the Sister City, and also the delegation. So it's a combination of meeting with public officials and then ended up with the students, because we are not chaperones. They have their homestaying, they have chaperones. We are the adult delegation to work with, to meet with the governments actually. So, Council Member, Vice Mayor Chow, please. I'm sorry. Vice Mayor Mohan.
Sorry.
Let him speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. When I saw this item on the agenda, when I saw this item on the agenda, my first question was, why is it even on the agenda? We are asking for the staff report asks for $2,200 to be transferred from one account to another. I would hope that someone at the level of city managers, the highest paid administrative person in the city, would have the authority to transfer $2,000 from an account which has the funds to the travel. So I was actually disappointed that this was even on the agenda, and that disappointment has actually been enhanced during this discussion of the last 45 minutes. People talked about the optics being bad, about $2,000 being spent. I think the optics of spending 45 minutes discussing every hour of every day of the travel that Mayor Way and the city manager are doing, that is pretty bad optics-wise. I have nothing else to say other than, if we have so much distrust and mistrust of the Sister City program and the people that these cities invite officials to, then maybe we should just abandon the program altogether. But to be worrying about every single hour and every single day of the people who go is just a horrendous waste of time, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Mohan. Councilmember Phoon.
So I'll echo most of what Vice Mayor Mohan just said, and just for the sake of clarity here, the funds otherwise are coming from the city manager conference and meeting budget. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, that is correct.
Okay, so what is that budget for the edification of all of us?
Great question. Through the mayor, Councilmember Fruin, the budget is intended for me to attend conferences or trainings or related business travels.
So as I see it, then this looks like it's intended as a fringe benefit, and I don't see why we should have to be authorizing a separate payment, a separate amount for you to be able to use what is effectively your own money. This just seems very strange, and a peculiarity of the way that we've crafted the Sister City program policy. Yeah, I agree with the Vice Mayor. This seems like a gigantic waste of time.
Hey, Councilmember Chow, you have a couple minutes.
Point of order. I believe Councilmember Chow has already used her time.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to
I think I used only 2 minutes and 30 seconds last time.
Okay, so we have opened up the public comment and we have made our points.
No, I didn't use up the 5 minutes. I'm pretty sure.
Why don't you take 2 minutes?
Yeah. Okay, so here is a policy that specifically says any payment for city staff has to be authorized in advance by the city council. travel expenses for the city manager usually is for conferences, professional conferences, not for individual economic development. Otherwise, the city manager could be traveling to New York or any city she wants just to develop economic opportunity. And per the policy that's in the agenda packet, international delegates specifically only mention city council. And delegates must contact city staff at least 60 days in advance, and travel expenses for international delegation applies only to council members. The city manager's travel expense was never meant for international travel and never meant for economic development. And if the mayor is going to be conducting official city business on economical development for any country, the council should have a discussion first on what kind of opportunity, which country, and is it worth us to spend 6 days of city manager time to perform this opportunity? When did we have that discussion? Never. And I did not request for this item to be put on today's agenda. I merely asked questions last week. This is scheduled, so I suppose city manager and city attorney recognized this approval is required. Otherwise, they would not have scheduled it today.
Right, thank you. Councilmember Froome, your light is still on.
Yeah, just in quick follow-up, if we have an issue with how the city manager spends her time on the trip, that is a matter for a performance review. It is not something for today's discussion.
I think everyone has expressed their discussions, and we are, we are.
I have a few seconds if I can finish my final thought.
Point of order. I believe Councilmember Chow has already spoken to this. We actually have important business to attend to in closed session tonight, that in contrast to what's being done now, which is simply kind of embarrassing to be up here listening to this.
Okay, so let's do a vote. Let's vote by light, please.
The motion carries with Chow and Moore voting no.
Thank you. So we are moving on to council reports and comments. I believe it starts with city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Waite. We do have a video to play. Video, can you go ahead and cue that? Thank you.
Mayor, I apologize. I don't know that we had a mover and a seconder for that item.
I think we did. Did we? Oh, I apologize. I thought we moved and seconded. Huh? Oh, I move the recommended action to approve the recommended action. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Second by Vice Mayor Mohan. Thank you, City Clerk, to keep us. Let's vote again by light.
The motion still carries with Chow and Moore voting no.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, to keep us in good order. So I am moving to the city manager's report. Let's roll the video.
We're out at our Civic Center Plaza in Cupertino for our Big Bunny 5K. The Big Bunny 5K is about bringing everyone together for a day of running, walking, jogging, hopping through our 3.1 miles in Cupertino, and to have a kids fun run as well. This is important to bring the community together, to embrace a positive and healthy community.
Thank you, City Manager Wu. Always give us an uplift, and we do have our city, our council reports filed in, and considered we're really late. I would like to open up oral communications again because I think we do have one person who would like to speak.
Yes, Mayor. Stanley Young has his hand raised. Welcome, Stanley. And Stanley, you'll need to unmute. There you go.
I wanted to say good afternoon earlier, but it's been a long evening. So now I will say good evening, Honorable Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council members. My name is Stanley Young with IFPTE Local 21, representing Cupertino employees in the CEA bargaining unit. I am asking you to consider investing in the city's greatest asset, which are the city employees who provide great public service to your constituents who elected you. We know that there is difficult economic news with the audit that the city is facing. That being said, we hope that there are reasonable solutions like a payment plan similar to student loans or a mortgage or a car payment, and also using the reserves to tackle this economic problem that the city faces. I'm concerned about the morale and how that can impact retention of great employees with this economic news. Therefore, I am requesting on behalf of the employees that I represent for City Council to provide direction to the city's negotiating team that includes a fair cost of living increases to make sure that our members can afford to live and work in the South Bay. I also want to say that it's been nice to meet Pamela Wu and also work with Christopher Boucher, the city's attorney, and we hope to continue a good collaborative relationship with this city. It's not in the union's interest to be part of bankrupting the city. So if we ask for fair and moderate wage increases, that is to make sure that we can provide the services that make the city run, and the people that I represent are behind that. So I just want to say thank you for your time and thanks for your consideration, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Good night.
And Mayor, that's the only person with their hand raised.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. If anyone in the public would like to speak, I'll open up to that too. If not, I am going to close this session, and we're going into a closed session. And we will report back after the closed session from Conference C, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And if anybody else wants to comment on... Thank you. If anybody else wants to comment on the closed session items, there will be an opportunity in Conference Room C.
All right, so we are going to retreat to Conference C.